All right. All right, just checking to make sure we're up on our usual unusuals. Won't be Substack this morning because it's being glitchy. That was the hang-up, I think. All right, 30 seconds. All right, let's try and jump straight in and make sure everything works and it's going all right. Good morning. John Fugelsang, can you hear and see me? And is everything all right now that I've scrambled and made it work?
I can hear you. I cannot see your handsome face.
Oh, that's right.
All right.
Sorry, virtual camera. You must be set on the other thing, which is the other thing. You should be able to see me. Okay. OBS virtual camera is sending to you.
I'm happy to log off and log back on.
No. You're. There's nothing wrong with what you're doing. I know exactly what's happening. I am sending you a programming window instead of interview guests see the host camera. Blink.
Ah, there we go. Look at
Hey, you're on. Look at that. And I'm on and we're all on. And thank you very much. Yay. So welcome to the show. John Fugelsang, the great John Fugelsang, published best-selling author, if I may say so, my damn self. Yes. Does it feel weird that your book is becoming more appropriate by the hour? With few,
it sort of felt that way since I was a kid, to be honest with you.
Right.
You know, this book felt very appropriate during the Iraq War. It felt very appropriate during Trump's first term. And I wrote it during the presidential campaign of 2024. It is insane. But at the same time, what we're seeing with Trump is just a logical conclusion of what began 40 odd years ago.
Yes.
When they got the Christians to replace everything Jesus ever talked about with criminalizing abortion, which Jesus never talked about. And once banning abortion ate American Christianity, the reality show racist president was just a few steps away.
Yeah, the point I've been making to a lot of maggots lately is that Donald Trump, in all their story about him being an outsider and a businessman and not a politician and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah.
Could not be a more typical Republican president in total line with the trajectory of the Republican Party, at least since Reagan, certainly.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, but again, they fell for Bush and Cheney the same way. Oh, they're outsiders. Oh, Bush isn't business as usual. I mean, look in both
He's
cases.
compassionate conservative.
Oh yeah, the branding. Millionaires at birth who supported Nam but avoided going, but still wanted other guys to go in their place. Bush and Trump are exactly the kind of guys that right-wing white Christian folks get suckered by in this country.
Yeah, it becomes increasingly odd as the days go by, and I feel like, I wanted to call your show with me and Frangela going out on the road the I Told You show. And
yeah, what a good idea.
We got to do it. We have to, because especially leading into the midterms, but I know I can dig in, but in all honesty, right now, so many of them I've noticed there's a habit. There's one habit that when Biden or Obama in the administration, when Obama passes the ACA using Congress, going through the entire process that you go through to pass a bill and all the legal channels and even the limitations of having to cut stuff out of it, it's Obama shoving something down our throat, right? That's the term they use.
Yeah.
Even though the whole Senate, the House, everybody was involved, including the SCOTUS in reviewing it. Obama is shoving this down our throat, which put all the sexual
Yes.
connotations aside, that's one thing. When Trump does something extrajudicially, does not involve the Senate and the Congress, and they hate it, they go, the federal government is blah, blah, blah. The government
Oh,
this is
yes.
what the government does. Like they take all the blame
Yes.
off him, even though he's doing exactly what they accused Obama and Biden of.
Yeah, that's the
Eh,
cult mentality.
It's,
It
it,
works with
it's,
the henchmen as well. Pam Bondi gets fired, and she goes off, and she will take all the blame in the minds of MAGA for the
right,
Epstein files, right? So she'll take the blame for the Epstein files, not the guy who's the reason we're dealing with the Epstein files. If Iran goes even more south and gets even more embarrassing for Trump than it is, you look to see the Secretary of Jägermeister, Hegseth. He'll be fired, and with him will go the entire blame for the entire Iran war. But this,
right,
we've already seen this model. This is what happened after Bush and Cheney's term ended. And Bush and Cheney went off and took all the blame for the financial crash and the housing crash and the Iraq war. And all of their enablers in Congress stayed right there in governance. They're doing the same racket right now. And they'll do it to Trump himself. Once Trump is gone, all of his blindly obedient bootlickers in this Congress will stay there saying, "What happened? What happened?" This is the
right.
game.
Well, okay,
And
so
when it's Bush shoving a war down our throats, that's patriotism. When it's Barack Obama getting health care to people in the lowest uninsured rate in the country's history, that's shoving something down our throats, isn't it?
yeah, I like it, it happened almost immediately. The only turn I have seen, and it's pretty recent, and it largely is due to I would say it's due to the Iran war, but it's really the stacking of things. This is, I think we've thought of them as this never diverging cult for a long time because one thing that would make it enough for us, the Epstein partnership for 27 plus years, would is enough. The 27 women who have accused Trump of sexual assault that are, verifiable and honest and have come forward. That would be enough for all of us. But each of those on its own, not being enough for the maggots, it makes it sort of a cult response. We're like, how the fuck can they not move past this? But I think it's the stack that's finally getting him. You know what I mean? Like, one
Yeah.
thing on top of the other. It's, and their own bigotry, their own anti-black, anti-Semitism, anti-whatever. Like that also, if he seems too friendly along those things, is kind of like the mortar that holds the bigger bricks of there's nothing to the Epstein files last year. Boom. We attacked Iran last year, but we got out quickly. Boom. We're back in Iran. Boom. Like these are big bricks. No new regime wars. No, no regime wars. No forever wars. All these things that
Yeah.
he sold them. These are giant bricks of like fuck you that he's just stacking between him and them.
Yeah.
And the mortar is the
But
little stuff.
that's what happened with Bush and Cheney as well. It had to get to the point where
Right.
all of these lies and abuses became inconvenient for the cult members. And in there, you had the war and the body bags and the gas prices, but you also had the housing crash, you had the Wall Street crash, you had the bailout. It's what I call what the fuck fatigue. That eventually,
Right.
at some point, our outrage circuits get burned out because there's this nonstop anti-freedom riders fire hose turned on us of what the fucks that never lets up.
Right.
So I mean, but here's a crazy thought. Maybe the cult isn't the cult of Trump. Maybe it's the same cult it's been all of our lifetime, and Trump is just the hood ornament that has harnessed the cult right now. The real cult here is going to still be in existence after Trump leaves, waiting for another cult master. And the cult
Right.
is white Christian nationalism. White Christian nationalism is the same cult that allowed Bush and Cheney to get away with their malfeasance,
Right.
same cult that allows this guy, the same cult that allowed Nixon to get away with the Southern strategy and the drug war and all of his crimes. I mean, if Nixon had Fox News, let's not kid ourselves. He never would have had to resign from office.
Right.
The cult is white Christian nationalism, this unit that is certain that not that they're better than us, that God likes them better than us.
Right.
This cult that does not care about the teachings of Jesus, they're anointed, so whatever they want must be what God wants, and this same God hates the same people they hate, and it's a cult of spiritual narcissism and laziness. And, George Bush, I hate to keep talking about Bush and Cheney, but I'm seeing these patterns so much right now.
Yep.
George W. Bush hasn't been invited to a Republican convention for what, 20 years?
Hmm.
right? Like he was, remember how much they hated us for going after Bush? Remember
Oh
how much
yeah.
they hated us for using facts and logic on their dumb millionaire at birth president who couldn't spell without a teleprompter in
Right.
front of him? Now they deny they ever supported him because the cult is the cult. And when it's all authoritarianism. And when an authoritarian figure is no good anymore, they'll get a new one. And when Trump is no good anymore, they'll get a new one then. But this is
Hmm.
the Confederacy. It's always been there. It's still the Confederacy, and Donald Trump is the most pro-Confederate president we've had since Andrew Johnson. Nothing new.
Yeah. Well, okay. So one of the things that I think is new is obviously over time our media landscape has gone through these fits and starts where we're almost back to 1800s journalism in a lot of ways. Anything somebody can scribble in a book about the wild antics of Billy the Kid and puts it in a Western novel passes for news from the front,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's very similar. And then there became this kind of aggregation where, like, hang on a second, we need both legal and ethical journalist rules about what qualifies as news and what gets out. And then
Desperately.
the pushback on that from the Confederacy was, well, they're leaving, they don't like our facts, so facts no longer matter. So
Yes.
we've kind of blossomed into this. You know what we need is we need old yellow journalism from the front. We need some people writing that their own tales of rewriting the history of Custer or whatever. That kind of thing. They miss it, and I think increasingly a lot of us off and on joked about, I would say, about when Trump goes, "I want to make America great again," that everybody thought he meant the 50s, which was this kind of like subtle
Yeah.
segregationist racism that existed after
Well,
women
in
and people
fairness,
had
no journalist ever really pinned him down on what that vague thing meant. But you're right, right?
true.
The
Right. And
50s, but they don't want to do the policies Eisenhower did to make the 50s a great time for the middle class. Keep that in mind
right.
as well. They
Yeah.
don't want to have they don't want to have infrastructure spending. They don't want to have socialism like the GI Bill. They don't want to have progressive taxation. Everything they don't want to have a Republican Party that heavily supports labor unions.
Hmm.
Everything they romanticize about the 50s, well, they don't want to do the policies that made the 50s such a great time because the 50s was when capitalism and socialism were both turned up to 11. Can you imagine if we had those kind of policies now with women in the workforce? I
Hmm.
mean, it would be incredible. It would be a new golden age for the middle class. And that's why Republicans are being groomed relentlessly to want to avoid that. They don't want to do anything Eisenhower did or anything Jesus did, but they'll worship the 50s and they'll worship the Bible.
Right. A couple of things on my Substack. I have an economic paper that I wrote on the mixed economy in an economic outline I call Sparksism, which proves that in many ways the way you're saying is that a mixed economy is the only thing that works in a high order
Only thing that
society.
works.
Only thing that will ever
Only
work.
thing.
Collective works that we all couldn't buy on our own, like making roads and bridges and power plants and shit like that, have to be done through democratic taxation. So we all agree on it, but there's not a top down centralized force,
Look
which
at you, my democratic socialist friend. Absolutely.
well, it's not
This is the
socialism.
only thing that works.
It's
Democratic
democratic.
socialism. Democratic socialism.
It's not, no, it's not democratic socialism either, because socialism would create government power plants that are only run by the government. It's still means of
I
production. It's
know. I'm
democratic
talking
taxation. Yeah.
Bernie Sanders, not actual socialism where
No,
the
no, no. I know
government
that, and I'm
nationalizes corporations. Yeah.
both of the words I think have outlived their usefulness. Even capitalism is first of all started as a pejorative exonym by communists to describe the market economy, which is nowhere near capitalism. People do not think of the money in their pocket that they got from their own labor as their capital. It's not
Right.
what that meant was resource capitalism, oligarchy. And oligarchy is not capitalism in the traditional sense, of what people think of now.
No.
We've
No.
taken the market economy, which is I grow apples, I bring them to the market. It took me a lot to grow and make them. So I can charge a little more because I need more water, more fertilizer, more effort, more people to do it. So that's between you and me. If I have too many apples, I can
Yes.
lower the price. That's market economy. That's not
That's
capital.
right.
That's not
I got a lot of exonyms for that.
right. I
But yeah, but
stand on oil.
here's
Fuck
where
that. Right.
look at Russia.
Yeah.
Communism ended in Russia. Did Putin steer them to capitalism? No. They're
Right.
like Tatooine, controlled by the Huts. It is
Hmm.
gangster economy. They are an oligarchy. And that is what Trump and the Republican Party and the
Right.
billionaires who own our politicians are trying to move us towards,
Yes.
a Tatooine style oligarchy where the giant orange slugs control the economy.
Yeah. Well, it's like the mob isn't capitalism. The mob is using the market, the normalcy of the market, to manipulate and control it through
That's
violence
right.
and coercion. That's not
Yeah.
even that's where capital is violence, and in that regard,
Yeah.
that's where I think
Unlike
Trump.
capitalism, the mob will let you pay for protection.
Right. Well, in this idea though, that's what Trump uses as capital. I've been also making the case lately that we've always known that he didn't write The Art of the Deal and he's always been full of shit. But reality is that he's never made deals. He's always just strong-armed people. He strong arms them. If I've got more money than you, or more lawyers than you, or I've got ins with the mob, or Roy Cohn, or I can have blackmail leverage on you, or those kind of things, I can buy your building and fuck you. But if I don't, I'll just walk away because he can't
Yeah.
win on the merits ever. And the same thing is true right now in Iran. He thinks he can muscle his way through this. He's not making a deal with Iran. He's strong arming them. And if he
That's
can't,
right.
if the strong arming doesn't work, there is no plan B. It's fuck off and blame somebody else.
That's right. And who's he going to blame for Iran? That's what I can't wait to see. Who's he going to blame for these
NATO
Poles? I
right
mean,
now.
I think NATO. I think transgender kids who like to play
Sure.
sports. I think Hunter Biden is still fair game. That guy's got a lot coming to him. And
Hmm.
I think I'm ready for him to just start blaming more Republicans, which he's already doing.
Right.
Homeboy has cut Megan loose. He has cut Alex Jones loose. He's cutting them all loose. It's beautiful, and it's going to keep on like this. This is going to be a Herzog movie for the next 2 years. And
Right.
if Trump dies and Baby Man takes over, it's still going to be a Herzog movie for the next 2 years.
Yeah, because they don't like him any more than they like Trump right now, and for all
Oh,
because he was supposed to be the handler in many ways on a bunch of issues, crypto,
bah.
technocracy, and right wing Christianity, and he fails on all
He's a
fronts.
puppet.
Holy
Yeah. Well,
shit!
he's really going to fail on the fact that he has no riz. MAGA's never going to bow down to Baby Man. They love Man
Right.
Baby, but Baby Man, little eyeliner model with his doughy amoral face, no. JD Vance is never going to have the charisma to get these racists in line, but he sure is trying. I mean, he's willing to attack the Pope of a religion he doesn't follow to defend a war he doesn't support.
Right. And I will say that how dare you say that JD, that Just Dumb Vance doesn't have the Riz. Because I don't know if you know this, but today or maybe yesterday or maybe not, or possibly this afternoon, but maybe tonight or possibly tomorrow before the end of tomorrow or tonight, he's going to fly to Islamabad and sign a deal that mostly has been agreed to that'll fix everything, give us the Strait of Hormuz. Iran will shut down their everything tonight, by the way, which, by the way,
Yeah,
I mean,
sure it
is
will.
right.
Sure it will.
It's so dumb. So obviously the market
Yeah.
reacted on Friday to this bullshit story that Trump was telling, like, we got it, we secured it. And
Yeah.
then and
All
then
all day long. I did a whole commentary on Sirius XM Friday night about how all of this was market manipulation. His 13 tweets in 1 hour about how great everything were going. In fact, what time is the Islamabad meeting? Because I got to call my broker later
yeah,
on.
right.
But that's all it is. And Iran is calling us out for stock manipulation. This is the point where we've reached, Hal. The Ayatollahs are the only SEC whistleblower left. That's where we're at.
Right. Well, and I would like to say that, like, they are clearly. I've said recently that I have never felt more kinship with the Iranian people because we are both run by arrogant doomsday assholes who thinks the sun shines out of their own ass. And
Oh, throw in the Israeli people as well on that one.
sure,
It's
yep,
fundamentalist religion. This is what I always have to say to atheist brothers and sisters. It's not religion causing all the world's problems.
right,
It is the fundamentalist wings of all the religions. The overwhelming majority of moderate and liberal Christians, Jews, and Muslims are being groovy and getting along right now. It is
yeah,
every Hinduism. It is the extreme conservatives of every religion that's responsible for all the violence, all the oppression of women, all the homophobia, run down the list. It is the fundamentalists of all the religions making the world so interesting for the rest of us. And
Hmm.
they're the ones who are turning people off from religion. It's not the nice Muslims and Jews and Christians doing it. It's the cruelty oriented douchebag fundamentalists again, because they know God likes them more, so anything they do is okay. And this is the destructive part of it. It's got nothing to do with spirituality. This
Right.
is nationalism, and this
Well,
is
that's
what
the
is
key.
destroying Christianity. It's what's destroying Judaism, and it's what's destroying Islam.
Well, that's the key too, because the fundamentalists and the orthodox of those communities that aren't government linked often get driven out of places, arrested like normal, like the FLDS or something like the sort of child sex part of the Latter Day Saints. That guy Warren Jeffs,
Yeah.
and his crowd, right? There's a new
Hmm.
documentary on Netflix that people should watch about the guy who tried to take his place, and it's very telling. Those people are exactly the kind of people you're talking about, but it's not them that are causing all the trouble in the world. It's the government linked ones. It's when
Yeah.
you have fundamentalist ideals linked with the heavy-handedness of a military. It's why we have separation of church and state in
Right.
the United States to start with,
Right.
because that's a problem you can see coming up again and again and again if you're Jefferson.
Always.
Right.
Always. Look at it this way: extreme conservative fundamentalist religious people aligning with authoritarian government is literally what killed Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. And these,
Right? Still is.
if there are no resources or material gains at play, the fundamentalist or orthodox or extremist or radical parts of this don't matter. They never have. They end up going up into the mountains and hail bopping themselves or starving to death like fucking Quakers in a snowstorm, thinking God's going
Oh,
to bring pumpkins from the dirt.
a lot of them are private contractors who can easily get an AR-15 and shoot up a school too, Hal. Let's not count those hopeless romantics out. There's lots of
Sure.
individual actors too.
Right. Well, again, those people oftentimes create a backlash to what they're actually trying to accomplish more so than they
Yeah.
actually accomplish their goals. So that's why there's always this kind of false flag concept that is really based on, like every time somebody shoots up a place, Republicans, especially maggots, claim, like Alex Jones, claim it's a false flag and it's an attempt to get us to not
Always.
have it. And it's not, it's because they don't understand the psychology of people when they're confronted with some awful, go, fuck that awful. I'm not interested in that awful. I got shit to do. I don't want that crap in my life. It's not that somebody's arranging for everybody to think this way. It's because they actually do think this way. It's just it's not in the front of their, right in front of their eyes. So they're dealing with the rest of their fucking life.
Yeah.
Right.
You're
And
right.
so
Yeah.
this assumption that, there's a coordinating hand, when in reality, this is just what happens when some psychopath decides that their grievance is worth more than other people's lives. There's a backlash from the rest of us who would like to be alive. Period. And then, right.
Exactly.
And the same thing is true of Iran and Israel and Gaza and Israel and Lebanon now,
Well, and
and
we've been
Russia and
seeing this for a
Ukraine.
long time. Yeah, but we've been seeing this for a long time. The anti-Ayatollah protests in Iran, it's going on since 2009. The majority of the population of Iran is under the age of 50. These Ayatollahs know that they can't keep this fundamentalist racket going forever. It's only been going
Right.
since the late 70s, but of course, Donald Trump just made the Ayatollahs stronger than ever. Likewise, look at all the incredible protests we have seen against the Netanyahu regime by Israelis.
Mm-hmm.
That's been slowed down as well now. I mean, the problem is that authoritarians use war to consolidate their power, and we're seeing them do it all over the place, and that's why
Mm-hmm.
Donald Trump's doing what he's doing right now. In fact, his distraction from the Epstein files is going so badly, they need to talk about the Epstein files to distract us from the war.
Right. Or leak stories about what a drunk Cash Patel is. Um, you know.
Oh, you think it was the White House did that?
Oh yeah. I think
Oh,
there's.
I think it's a career FBI has done all of that. I think
Oh
that's
no, no.
our
I'm.
career
I'm.
FBI.
I'm. What I'm saying is that when you got 7 sources, when the newspaper has 3 or 4 from, current FBI who are like, lower level, can't go on the record or whatever, but then you get a call from inside the building, really close to him in the upper echelon, the top, 7 people that goes, yeah, that's it's for real. That's the legal.
Yeah.
That's why they could legally say it's not just 9 disgruntled people, because there's enough people in the FBI who hate Kash Patel for being a fuck up that they could shit talk him in a coordinated fashion. In theory,
Anytime.
it's not
Yes.
happening, but you could see them going, you know what, let's get this fucker, but they're not.
Right, but this is the expendable henchman theory of Donald Trump, right? You
Right.
hang on to them. You don't have adults in the room. There are no adults in the room. There's adult film stars in the room, but no adults in the room. Instead, you get these flunkies and these clowns and these
Right.
suck ups. And what you do is, when you hire qualified people, they say, "Oh, Mr. President, that's illegal. You can't do that." That was the first term. Man Baby didn't like that. So
Mm-hmm.
now Come Over Caligula hires these Pete Hegseths and these Christy Gnomes. And I mean, he tried to make Matt Gaetz the top cop. He's not just defending child rapists. He tried to hire a child rapist to protect the child rapist. And why does he hire such egregious flunkies? Because, again, when the heat gets too close to him, he can lance them like a boil.
Yep.
And every one of them gets a one-way ticket to Christine Ome Island, and Dan Bongino's there, and Greg Bovino's there, and Pam Bondi's there, and they're waiting for Cash, and they're waiting for RFK, and they're waiting for Dr. Oz, and they're really waiting for Hegseth. This is the whole plan. Trump will fire all of these flunkies and make them take the blame for failing to solve problems Trump created, and they're all too bloody stupid to know it.
Right. Sorry, one second. There's an audio switch between you and I, so that I'm trying to even. It's not
Oh,
you, not you. I'm just too loud.
thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So, there is a okay. So right now, tonight is another stock manipulation, oil price manipulation opportunity for the White House. It's like there is no fucking way
Yeah.
there is an agreement signed tonight that even if Trump walks out with one with a scribble on it that says this is the signature of whatever, nobody's fucking gonna buy it. And the IRGC, right? Okay, right now the IRGC runs Iran. We basically, the analogy I used is that imagine Iran is maggots, is the maggot hierarchy, and Trump is at the top. He's the Ayatollah, and he's been knocked out of the way. And then there's Vance and Hegseth, and they've been knocked out of the way. We're down to Sidney Powell and Linwood and like the Shadow of Ezra QAnon account. That's who we're talking to in theory right now, or who's got a gun to whoever's coming back from the talks. That's what's really happening right now. That's the IRGC is currently in control. The second Ayatollah, whether he's injured or not, is not seen as a clerical, natural, heir to the Ayatollah's throne. He doesn't have the riz that the original Ayatollah had. That's why he hung on to it for so fucking long. He's not thought of as, he didn't teach clerical classes as a Muslim leader and all that kind of stuff. Seen more as kind of a business sideline version of it. And so they
Yeah,
don't.
like
He
the
does
Jerry Falwell Jr. of the religious
exactly.
kooks. Yes.
That's exactly right. And so they don't view him as the guy who has the voice that brought the mega church together. They're like, this is his dipshit son who was fucking around with girls on the side, as a youth pastor. Like that's who they think of him. So the
Yeah, maybe.
IRGC, there's like 6 IRGC heads, and 4 of them are allegedly, and nobody knows right now, but allegedly in the Tehran area, communicating separately but together in Zoom like meetings or whatever. And then there's 3 of them that are outside at these other sites digging up the buried ballistic missiles, not that we buried by blowing up, that they have had hidden
Right.
for just, in case of
Right.
emergency break glass. So it's like 7 of these guys, 3 of them are really in charge. The one, like, main leader overseeing it all talks to the other 2, but they basically are telling the Ayatollah and the foreign minister, like, what to say, because they're going home. These motherfuckers are that fundamentalist wing and here's the thing, that Hegseth only pretends to be. His whole
Yes.
like God spiel, he doesn't believe that shit at all. He doesn't. His wife makes him believe it because he was fucking around and getting
Mm,
drunk and assaulting
mm.
women. So she makes him pray with him every morning over breakfast before
Oh,
he leaves the fucking house.
I'm sorry to disagree with you on this one. No, Hegseth is so much more evil than you're giving him credit for.
No,
He
I think he's
truly.
evil, but I just don't think it's rooted
Oh,
in
he's
true
a.
religious belief. I think I think it
None of
gives
it's
him
rooted in true. No,
territorial,
none of
like,
it's rooted in true religious belief. It's all
right?
rooted in spiritual narcissism.
Yeah.
And Petulant Pete is filled to the brim with
Yes.
this presumptuous, crusader cosplay. It's so pathetic and creepy. He literally is so committed to the bit. He tattoos this white supremacist garbage on his body. And you know the tattoo Deus Vult,
Yeah.
which is not a
God
Jesus
will.
quote. That's a
Yeah.
God wills it, right?
Yeah.
Now God didn't say that. That was made up by the popes during the Crusades, who
Mm-hmm.
presumed that God wills it. Think about the hubris that you're going to say, this is what God wants.
Right.
Imagine these guys taking God out to lunch. You know these guys take God to lunch and probably order for him. You know, I'll have the macaroni and God here will have the chicken parmesan. Like they're willing to say what God
Right.
wills.
Yeah.
That is the essence of the narcissism. We're not even getting to the fact that the Crusaders were losers who were revoltingly anti everything Jesus ever tells you to do, but they were anti Jesus for Jesus. We're going to slaughter pagans and Muslims and Jews, but we're going to put a cross on top of the dead bodies. That's how much we care about Jesus. This is the toxic Hitlerian fantasy of religion that Pete Hegseth definitely believes in, Hal, because it's not faith, it's not spirituality, it's a petulant white American me gospel. And Pete Hegseth definitely believes that God takes great delight in the death of brown civilians.
Right. Like,
Believe me,
uh,
it is a serious religious conviction,
I think
but
he
it's all
projects that.
spiritual narcissism.
I think he projects that as an overlay on his own racism. It's not
Well,
that.
sure, he's a drunk as well, but I mean,
Yeah.
he believes it. He
Also,
really thinks that Russell Moore. I mean that all. I mean, sorry, that these pastors he brings in, not Russell Moore. But whatever the guy's name is, Doug with the beard. That these guys are real Christian leaders, and these guys are defending slavery and explaining why women shouldn't get the vote. These
right.
people
Oh yeah, that guy.
hate Jesus, and
Yeah.
this is the whole deal with the fight with the Pope. There is no fight with the Pope. Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Mike Johnson have not been in any kind of argument with the Pope. The Pope's just quoting Jesus.
Right.
Their argument, their fight is with Jesus. One
Mm-hmm.
man's quoting Jesus, the other guys are fighting him. And, saying that you're mad because the Pope doesn't approve of your war is like getting mad because your doctor doesn't approve of your crack habit.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's all spiritual liars and frauds. They don't believe in anything that's actually in the Bible. They just believe that God likes them better than other people, and that's the extent of their spirituality.
Well, all of the Abrahamic religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, have their own version of Deus Vult. The difference is
Yeah.
that one sounds kind of Germanic, so it's stuck with assholes like Hegseth. So they like the
Ah,
phrase. The reality is that they've all claimed it. You know, that was a phrase carried back from the Crusades by in their confrontations with the Muslims because of the expansion of the Byzantine Empire, and they all agreed on it. It was the same as the theory that the Jews killed Christ because they didn't believe he was the Messiah and they thought he was a heretic, and they get to choose the Messiah in the same way that the Muslims get to pick who the prophet is. Nobody gets.
yeah.
They're all. It's a fucking Jerry Springer fight between a bunch of kids trying to inherit the wealth of the region. And
Yeah,
again, that
that's
goes
it.
to that
Resource extraction. It's
exactly.
always been from the doctrine of discovery in Columbus. God wants you to steal stuff that's buried in the wrong country.
Yeah, if
How
you
did
come
our
across.
oil get under their ground?
Yeah, right. And the reality is that if God gave you the countenance and the intelligence to go, I don't even need to get the oil from under that ground. I could get it strictly from the sun the Lord gives me every day, the wind that He blows across this land, and the geothermal heat that's underneath the ground that could heat my water even on
Yes,
cold days in North Dakota. Instead of that being the
that's
teaching,
spiritual. That's
Right.
spiritual. That's indigenous philosophy.
Hmm.
That is not empire. That is not Rome. That is not Caesar. And that's not Caesar's way of doing things. And that's not how these guys are going to get rich. You know, keep in mind, Donald Trump promised, and you know this better than anybody. Donald Trump promised these oil company scumbags anything they want. If they would
Yeah.
give me $1 billion and you will get anything you want. And poof, we get a war in Venezuela. Resource extraction.
Yeah.
Donald Trump doesn't care about the people of Iran any more than he cares about the people of Mississippi.
Right.
Resource extraction is what the
Hmm.
wars have always been fought for. And again, it's like this is what organized religion has been. The
Hmm.
struggle of Christianity for 1700 years has been the fake Christians versus the Christ followers. And the
Hmm.
fake Christians are the ones using religion, using power to get whatever they want and ignoring the gospels. And then over here, you got the Dr. Kings and the Frederick Douglasses and the Harriet Tubmans and the Quakers and the Dorothy Days and the Bishop Tutus, the ones who actually walk the spiritual path to shout down these blaspheming Bubba theocratic thugs.
Hmm. They're
But they
you-
hate Jesus. They hate Jesus. And this whole Pope fight, I was on MS Now over the weekend with our friend Ali Velshi, and I said it. It's like they're not fighting the Pope. They're fighting against the religion they pretend to follow, and our media is too cowardly to ask the real questions. There's no universe where you can drop bombs from an airplane and pretend you follow the Nazarene. And atheist friends, it doesn't matter if any of this stuff is literal or not. This is the book they claim to follow. You don't
mhm.
need to believe in it as literal fact to call these frauds out. And some of the best people who do that are atheists and agnostics, as you know, because
Right.
atheists and agnostics tend to know the Bible pretty better. In many cases, knowing the Bible is what made them atheists and agnostics.
Well, I would argue that well, I don't know about whether it was the Bible that turned them or the conflict between what they were reading in the book and what the people that were talking on behalf of the book said
Well,
that
that was
really
my
did it.
problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my
Well,
problem. I'm like, I'm down with the guy in the book, but boy, his fan clubs sure are lacking quite a bit.
sure.
And
Yeah.
that's how it's always been. And that's why, I try to separate it. You got to separate the teachings of Jesus from the religious organizations, from the political movements that use religious imagery to get power. I mean, Donald Trump's whole weird little Monster Energy drink halftime show picture of him as Jesus, where he's healing one of the Oak Ridge boys, like
Hmm.
a lot of fuss was made over that, and it was tacky as hell. But I mean, the use of messianic imagery by power to somehow sanctify violence is nothing new.
Right.
And in
It's
that
just this
sense,
is just
Trump
the
was filling
Timu
a
version.
long tradition.
Right.
Yes, and since the Vatican took over Christianity 1700 years ago, the early church for 300 years, they were hardcore, man. No war. They wouldn't serve in the
Hmm.
Roman army. They got fed to the lions. And then one day, 300 years in, Rome says, hey, how would you guys like to start feeding other people to the lions? How would
Hmm.
you poor little impoverished preachers like to have giant gold cathedrals and silk robes? How about come over here, be the state church of Rome, bless what we do, and you're fine. And that's a straight line to Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth bringing in these Paula Whites to sanctify their war. Because most people don't actually read the holy books. For most of the history of Christianity, it was in Latin anyway, so you had to have a priest tell you what Jesus was saying.
Right.
And that's the whole racket. Empire knows that if people read what Jesus said about empire, they're not going to follow empire. So
Hmm.
it's been very in the church's interest for the overwhelming majority of Christian history to keep people from knowing what this revolutionary brown skinned figure of Christ actually said. So that's what you do. You get some flunky in a dress and a goofy hat to come in and say nominous sacred words over your war. It's a straight line from the early Vatican straight up to Paula White saying, oh, Mr. Trump, you're just like Jesus. They bring in frauds, religious sounding kooky people to sanctify and bless their blasphemy. And folks who don't know better think that that's religion.
Well, and again, obviously, you and I are speaking from a very Amerocentric kind of idea because this is the country we live in,
Indeed.
and this is where we're looking out in the world. But this is not unique, and that's what I think people need to understand. The Saudi royal
Yes, it's
family,
not.
the imams of Jordan and other countries in the Middle East, and the Sheikh Khalifa and all the people who run Dubai and Abu Dhabi, these giant
Yeah.
gleaming monstrosities, these Vegas without gambling, drinking, or hookers unless you're out after dark, and then that's all it is. Um, do the exact same thing. They're taking whatever their version of what the prophet said, and they made a distinction in many ways, between Shia and Sunni, which is Shia, it's a familial lineage. Sunni is we get to pick who's in charge, like a pope. They took the pope
Yeah.
mechanic and they decided we get to pick, and the royals are part of the body that decide who that person is. And the
Yeah.
split is almost identical to the Protestant
And they
Reformation.
sanctify each other and they
And
prop each other up, like
right,
Putin bringing in the patriarch to bless the
right,
war in Ukraine. That's the
yep,
first thing Putin did, was dig up the Russian patriarch, wheel him out, because when Russia was Soviet, it was all atheism. Now it's oligarchy. We need religion. So Putin brings in the patriarch to say, oh, God approves of you raping and slaughtering the people of Ukraine. And boom, that's all you got to do. It's enough to get 1/3 of the population on your side. And as fascists have shown us, 1/3 of the population is all you need.
yeah. Well, and that's all. That brings us to it's a great point because it brings us to the polling right now, because that's
Ah,
where Trump is. 32% approval on all of his key issues. Basically in the
yeah,
basement, with a 3 to 4% margin of error either direction in every single poll, between 32 and
yeah.
36, on immigration, the economy, inflation,
That's
separate
right.
or together, this war, the his handling of the Epstein files.
That's right. That's
Um,
right. I hope your attractive audience is enjoying this, by the way, folks. As bad as it is,
yeah,
please take some time every day to stop and smell the train wreck. Please.
absolutely.
And this is a sign of how healthy the society is.
Yeah,
As bad as this has been, as the historic humiliation of this racist clown getting the presidency again after he had cops beaten on the Capitol steps for a lie.
yeah,
Remember, these same white people reelected Bush after they found out he had lied them into war with no WMDs, and they still reelected him anyway. But
right.
so as humiliating as it all is, as awful as it all is, look at us. The American people have already had it with this guy less than
Hmm.
18 months in. It's done. And he's
Yeah.
going to be withering on the vine for the rest of this next 2.5 years. And that shows that there is goodness. I say a lot. If you told me in the 90s, Hal, that we would have gay marriage, that we would have a
Yeah.
black president, that we would stop putting people in jail for cannabis. If you had told
Hmm.
me this in the late 90s, I wouldn't have believed it. I wouldn't have
Right.
believed the American people could make such leaps of goodness and morality. But
Right.
we are getting kinder. Our economics and our middle class are getting worse, but I do believe we're getting gay. Kids today can't believe how homophobic we were 20 years ago. In 20 years, they won't believe how transphobic we were now in so many demonstrable ways.
Right.
We are getting better. And one clear sign of that is that this Donald Trump authoritarian bullshit is
Yeah.
not working anymore.
No. And I will say, I'm trying to fix one of the things on the screen here because it's cattywampus just because of the nature of this graphic. But
Very nice.
one of the things that you can see in this, if I can drag it up and show it, whatever, is he's got a negative 16 approval rating right now, under here. Negative 29% on the economy, negative 22 with independence, he's got a 43% GOP strong approval, down from
Yeah.
52%. Only 40, like less than half of
He hasn't, and
Republicans.
why hasn't he fired Susie Wiles yet? Right? Like, why hasn't he? Because you know what's going to happen. It'll be her next. She will
Right,
take the fall for these poll numbers, and we got to get someone in here to reset the ship and steer it right. It's going to be a non-stop series of blame on underlings or third
right.
parties for him, and she'll
Well,
be next.
Well, the issue that they have is, and by the way, she just called today, apparently, an all hands on deck meeting because,
Good for her.
yeah, because of the midterms, because they are
Yeah.
looking at this trouncing. That's what. Okay, I will say that is what is being reported by Politico and other places, that she's calling this private all hands on deck about the midterms. I personally think she's calling an all hands on deck. I can't control this crazy motherfucker anymore.
Exactly. Exactly. She's the worst of all of them, Hal, because arguably, with the possible
But the
exception of
future is
Rubio,
female, John.
yeah, but Susie Wiles is smart enough to know how stupid all this is, and she has done this for crass careerism, just like Miss what's her name, Marco Rubio, that
Hmm.
bitch. They have both done this just to ride the wave of evil and see if the chaos can be a ladder for them. Susie Wiles unlike Caroline Levitt, is smart enough to know better. So she's punched her own ticket on this.
Ugh. So well, and Trump
And I bet
apparently.
she's leaking it too. I bet she's leaking it.
Okay, so that raises the question. I've had Doc Adam and a couple other people on my show, and we've talked about the fact that Trump is not long for this world. It's a matter of months. I think he was originally saying 3 to 5 months. I'm like, I think with Walter Reed and other, things we don't know about that the Pentagon has had about life extension, they might be able to drag this shit out to 9 months as long as he sits down and lets them put a needle in his arm.
Mm.
But
He's not a healthy man, is what you're saying, right? He's not a healthy man.
I mean, obviously, I'm not judging by his looks, his movement, his weird leaning stance or whatever. Obviously, the
No. I
signs
mean,
of an athlete.
I'm worried about him. His body is 40% Crisco. I mean, the man is like he's not well. They every time they put an IV in his hand, he bleeds Big Mac sauce. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yes.
Like he tried to fire his own pancreas. Hal, he's not a well man. We're just concerned about the president.
But there's no love today. A hoba hoba hoba. Anyway, gang, the the reality is
It's
I think
beautiful.
I know, and I think they have two strategies leading up to the midterms. One is he's alive and around and active and doing the same shit increasingly worse. Right? That they have to have a
Yes.
strategy for that. So giving
Yes.
Republicans the ability to get somehow to jump track and get off this train, and find some other messaging window where they can get elected as Republicans. And
You mean the radical Hail Mary pass, like abolish the IRS before the midterm, something
well,
like that?
I like Crowder was on Megyn Kelly, basically
Oh, I'm
spelling out.
sorry I missed that summit.
Yeah, it's brilliant. But basically spelling out what the words will be, which is if a vote for Democrats is the same kind of things Trump says about like transgender for everybody, which is
Yeah.
transhumanism, but he doesn't understand what that means. But he sat down with Peter Thiel once, and he got like gobbledygook because Peter Thiel spreads gobbledygook, and Donald Trump's brain is a fucking cheese sieve. I don't know what the fuck his thought process even is. That it's a vote for they're going to pack the courts. We're going to open up the borders. We're going to let non-citizens vote. We're going to like all this horse shit that he's been selling for years. They're going to take away your guns. It's the end of the Second Amendment. It's all this kind of stuff. That it's going to happen
Yeah.
immediately if they get that. And I'm like, okay, first of all, you're telling me that Donald Trump would sign these bills? What the fuck are you talking about? What you really mean is impeachment. What you really mean is that there'll be an impeachment trial, and there's enough Republicans that have had it that they'll dump this motherfucker if he's
Yeah.
still
Oh, yeah.
around.
That's the thing. And that's the thing. That's going to be the great beauty of all this. And I hope he lives long enough. I've always said, Hal, that I think we're just going to wake up one day and he will have resigned and we'll never be told why. But can you imagine if the very fickleness that allowed Donald Trump to get this power is what undoes him in the end? Because he's never believed in
Mm-hmm.
loyalty. He believes in
Right.
obedience, and they call it loyalty. And this has been an entire coalition of selfish people. It has been a crusade of purely selfish narcissists. You saw with Trump and Elon Musk, you put a bunch of narcissists in the same room. What a shock they don't work together and harmonize.
Right.
All of these people are out for themselves. That is the Republican ethos. That is trickle down economics. Selfishness as a virtue. John Kenneth Galbraith explained this very thoroughly in 1967. You know the quote: the modern conservative is engaged in one of mankind's oldest and most lucrative pursuits, the search to make virtue, to make selfishness seem like a virtue. I
Right.
paraphrase, forgive me. But
Sure.
that's it, right? It's
Yeah.
all been about selfishness. His whole life has been about greed. And so ultimately, that's what happens with these piggies. The same greed, that this wave they ride for so many years, comes to get him in the end. Trump's dad got to live into his 90s, richly enjoying his dementia. Trump had a much less healthy diet than his
Mm-hmm.
Klansman dad. And so the trans fats are doing to his heart what the Lord wants the trans fats to do to his heart right now.
Yeah. The as we look towards the rest of this year, I think the second plan is if he just keels over. And
Yeah.
I think the plan for that one, I can only see one plan, and I'm curious about your thought as we're waiting for the wonderful and talented Boston Brian to join us in the second hour. And I want to remind everybody, check out John's show on Sirius progress, and also to make sure that you get his book, The Separation of Church and Hate, which is must reading. I have a copy of it upstairs that I hope one day to meet the author and get it signed. Um,
Oh, shucks.
but the other one is If He Keels Over, and that
Yeah.
the sales pitch I think for that is better for them in their minds than if he's still around, and that's if he died throwing himself in front of the bullets of of the left, and you must help carry
Yes.
his legacy. His legacy will die if you don't vote for Republicans. Then JD Vance won't be able to extend Trump's legacy, right?
I know. And that's the irony, right? It's the toughest time to stage a fake assassination attempt is when your own base realized you may have faked your last assassination attempt. It
Right.
is
That was
not going well right now. You
right.
MAGA, I mean, the articles about the MAGAs, I'm finding some of the best resources about how Trump faked this whole thing from right-wing
Yeah.
people who are finally realizing that they have been punked for a very, very long time. And, try finding somebody in this country who remembers the name of the guy who shot at Trump.
Thomas Crooks.
Why? Thomas Crooks, you know it, but
Yeah.
you're a news
Yeah.
nerd like
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Try finding anybody else. We
Right.
remember the name of the guy who failed to kill Ronald Reagan. We don't remember the name of this kid, this Republican kid with the Republican gun from less than 2 years ago. I mean, the whole thing is sketchy, and it's going to be harder for them. They can't really fake an assassination attempt. They're going to keep on hoping that the Mad King just keels over exactly like you said. And I don't want that to happen. I want him to
I
live a
don't either.
very, very long time. I want him to live for years, preferably in The Hague, preferably. I don't want to wish him to be debilitated and drooling into a cup and having to have immigrants
You
change
don't
his
have
diaper and
to.
feed him applesauce all day long. But I mean, I want him to live long enough that they just park him in front of Fox News in his wheelchair for 6 hours straight and let him drool. I mean,
I
I think
told
he
you,
deserves a long
like
life.
the lame duck period of his presidency is more than likely going to be him, like Admiral Pike in Star Trek. Just in the electronic chair, just
Oh, with
bleep
with Woodrow
once for
Wilson's wife as with
yeah.
Woodrow Wilson's wife answering the door. He wants you to vote yes on this. Slam
That's
that
right.
door, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
That one beep
exactly.
means
They're
make
gonna
America
weekend at
great again.
Bernie's this guy. They're
Yep.
gonna weekend at Bernie's this guy, and it's gonna be all the karma from all the crap they said about Biden. And again, I want Trump to live a long life, but it is personally important to me that Joe Biden gets to sit in the front row with the other extra presidents at this funeral. Because can
Right.
you imagine that? Can you imagine Joe Biden at Trump? You know Michelle Obama's not skipping this funeral. She's
Oh
wearing
yeah.
red for this
Yeah.
one.
Well, that's the other thing too. Is like, after the whole Charlie Kirk assassination, I, like everybody else, was like, I don't want anybody shot and murdered. Period. I would rather argue with living people. I don't, I live in a democracy because I want us to settle our differences through debate, the exchange of ideas, and whoever has the better plan, and that people should vote on those kind of things, even if it means my side loses, fair and square. That's how it should be. But with Trump, and it, like, I could tell for a lot of people, it's going to be uncomfortably joyous if he kicks off, has a major stroke, and all this kind of stuff. And I will just be Libraing in the background.
Yeah, I do a whole bit about this. I do a whole routine
Yep,
about it
it's
because
great.
I don't want him to die. I want three ghosts to visit him on Christmas Eve and make him a good person. But he's gonna die,
Yeah,
and
and
he's not going to heaven. But you know what's gonna about 2,000 NDAs will go to heaven. And just imagine. When we were kids, there were still the old guys who defended Nixon, right? Hey, he
yep,
wasn't bad. He just got caught. You
yeah, yeah,
don't see a lot of old guys defending Bush and Cheney anymore. And I promise you, in 10 years, most of these racist clowns will deny they ever voted for Trump after
oh
2016.
yeah,
He's not just going to be the most unpopular president of all time. He may wind up being the first and second most unpopular president of all time. And I think, Hal, overall, he will go down in history as the worst American of all time. And there's nothing his filthy offspring can do to change that damage to their branding.
hmm,
And when he dies, and all the NDAs go to heaven, and all these women and contractors and people who got screwed by him can tell their stories, I mean, Ken Burns is going to have to make a 400-hour documentary about this
Oh my
guy.
God.
I mean, it's all going to come out. So, like, stay the course, people. Enjoy the fact that you're on the right side of history. It doesn't always feel good in the moment, but
Hmm.
we're just here carrying a baton for intelligence and decency from the ones who came before us to the ones that'll follow us. The struggle's never going to end, but I mean, we know the people who defend these fascists are always wrong, and they've always been proven wrong in history. Have some
That's right.
comfort from this.
Yeah, greatly appreciate it. Thank you, John, for being on the show. You're welcome anytime, my friend. It's always a
Thank
pleasure
you.
and
And
a
you know,
great.
he's not a healthy man, Hal. I'm just saying he looks like a stress ball somebody left in the microwave. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
he,
I gotta tell you,
his aortas negotiating a plea deal. Can I tell you? He's
can I
not a good
tell you,
healthy man.
he's
His
not a
his
healthy man,
colonoscopy was sponsored by Arby's. People, come on, he's not
right?
well. We're just concerned.
We've lost
Thank you,
three
Mr.
doctors
Sparks.
going in after it. Um, and like a guy crawls in there looking for his watch, and with a flashlight finds another guy in there. What are you doing in here? Look at my car keys. We can both drive out. What am I talking about? All right. Anyways,
Yeah. Oh, there's Putin's bracelet. Who knew? Yeah.
yeah, right.
Thank you for
Everybody.
having me.
All right, thanks, brother. Appreciate it. All right, I'm gonna let you go.
Peace.
And chat room. Let me set up. Yes, get a hold of his book if you will. I insist. And then let me throw in our dear friend Boston Brian, who's waiting here in the wingage. Just one second. And there he is. Excellent. And then I'll change this little thing right here. Looking good, by the way, Boston Brian. Looking real good, man. Coiffed and everything. um,
It's a tough act to follow.
it is, but you're both East Coasters, so you'll manage, I think, in a better way. By the way, hit the like, share the show, share clips. If you're on Twitch, you can clip the show and share it out on your socials. The same thing is true of the live streams on YouTube. If you want to clip those, all that is turned on. You're able to do it. If you find a moment that you think is particularly great, let us know, and we'll pull it. I mean, I personally, it's hard for me to even try because they all feel great to me. But I realize I'm not an impartial judge. But joining us right now, our dear friend Boston Brian. Good to see you, brother. How are you?
What's going on, my friend? How are you? First and foremost, how are you? How's summer?
She's good. She's it's like the day after. The day after is the rough part of chemo. It's like the third and fourth days when you're cooking and it feels funky.
Well, please send my best.
I will. I will. And then I've got to be out of town like 3 days this week because I've got I got the jam tomorrow night. I got rehearsal on Wednesday night. I got Thursday night at the Viper Room with Nerd Halen, and then Friday I've got Flappers. So and my brain is
You're all over the
everywhere.
place, Christ.
Yeah. I kind of jam it all together so that I can spend most of my time here. So I try
No, it
to,
makes sense. Makes sense.
yeah, but
Yeah. Knock it all out at one time.
exactly. So we were just talking about with the lovely and talented John Fugelsang, author of the book The Separation of Church and Hate, which everybody should pick up on at your favorite bookseller, that Donald Trump's poll numbers right now are super sucky. And to use a technical term, they are in the shitter. And there was this weird peak on Friday after the market manipulation push that he did all afternoon, where it went back up. And I'm sure you saw this, but the maggot media were dancing a jig everywhere to all the haters. Donald Trump has won. It's over. Everything's gonna be roses and lollipops and follow the yellow brick road. Right? That it's
Well,
on
they
stuff.
couldn't say rainbows. We know that, right?
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, because not for reasons you would think. It's because it apparently Cash Patel and Vance are very sensitive about it for some reason we've yet to figure out. But that's anybody's guess.
But But with all that tap dancing, how they failed to recognize that even, what was it, down to $80, $84 a barrel is still some $30 a barrel more than we were paying before the war started. You know what I
Right.
mean? So you can do all the tap dancing you want. But again, as I continue to say on the show, there's no metric that you could bring to me, that you could show me, that shows us that we are that we are better off now, that this was beneficial to us in any way, shape, or form. There's just
Right.
no way you could possibly do it. So, I mean, these people are just outright telling on themselves when you see them out there doing the propaganda, dancing a jig to news that they know themselves is detrimental in and of itself. Just having
Right.
to announce something like that, even to have to announce going from 120 to 84 or 100 to, like, just
Right.
that announcement shows you the incompetency, shows you the arrogance and the failures of this administration.
Well, and again, increasingly the question is, do they view it as a failure? Is Trump even capable of recognizing his failures? And for a while, it seemed like he was sort of impervious to it, like he actually believed what he was saying. Now, I think it's abundantly clear that he knows he's manipulating and lying to not just to it used to be to fuck with the press or flip the story around. Now it is clearly to quell the markets and get MAGA back under wing in for the midterms. Which, by the way, I would argue, if you're gonna sell some sort of like, I solved it overnight, it's done, we're safe, you'd save that for like 2 days before the election, because by the time they find out it was bullshit, and get mad at you again, they've already voted. But this early in the year, there's going to be 30 more of these moments, and they're not, I mean, even the dumbest of them are not going to forget. Look at Alex Jones. Holy shit. Like, MAGA is dead. Donald Trump has been taken over by demons. Like, Tucker Carlson's calling him the Antichrist, which I think gives him too much credit. I think he's the anti-Jesus. I don't think he's the Timu Antichrist. I don't think he's charming enough to be the actual Antichrist. And the Antichrist, in theory, according to, I think, the book of Daniel, can quote scripture better than the rabbis can. And obviously, yeah, I rest my case.
But I think the question is, does Donald Trump care? Like, I know he cares about people talking shit about him, right? I know he cares about, people that are supposed to be towing the party line, not towing the party line. But does he give a shit about the bad polling? Because does he give a shit about Alex Jones and, the dissolving of MAGA, the MAGA base? I know it's starting with the commentariat, as I call them, with the podcasters. But a lot of people watch those shows, right? So it's only a matter of time before those huge widening cracks that we see within the podcasters inevitably filters down to the people that watch those shows. You know what I mean? So I know we still see the overwhelming support, according to whatever polls that Fox News and everybody else wants to put out there, about the 100% for the war and all this other shit. And to a large extent, he does have that overwhelming support still, but it's only a fucking matter of time. But does he give a shit? Like, I just feel like he's in this, like, he's almost initiated and is affecting this, like, Neurobefell type of style of governance, which is the Neuro Decree that Hitler put into effect in, March of 1945, which is just basically a scorched earth policy to eliminate all of the civilian infrastructure in a place. Like, I just don't think he gives a shit anymore. He doesn't, like, he's not, I don't know if he's sure or unsure about what he's going to do after this term or what he really wants to fucking do. I still don't think he has that set in stone yet. Like, he's got the DOJ, the FBI, the House, the Senate, the SCOTUS. Like, he feels like there's invincibility at this point to do and say and lie about whatever he wants, because he's installed these people in the correct positions. Like, time and time again, I bring up that he didn't learn shit in his first administration, but what he did learn was where he met roadblocks, right? And the people that he has to put in place in the correct positions to avoid those roadblocks, or accountability, or justice, and to make sure that he could do these $10 billion lawsuits against the IRS coming from taxpayer money, to make sure that he could, when the military steps up and some people in his cabinet step up and say, hey, this fucking war with Iran is pretty goddamn stupid. You know what I mean? He has the ability, and he feels like he has the power to say, I don't care. The Mossad told me it was going to be great, told me it was going to go swimmingly. It'd be done in 10 days. I'd be able to call myself this alpha dictatorial, alpha strongman, that I could go down and my legacy would be written. Like, I just don't think that he cares about the low polling numbers. I think he cares about, people talking shit about him to a certain extent, but I don't think I think we've completely lost him at this point as far as care for the base. I mean, he's more than willing to call out Tucker Carlson and the rest of these people that, again, supported him to a point to get him in this position. So
right.
I don't know. What say you,
Well, okay, so I think there was a period where he thought he could shrug it off, and it's a habit that he falls back into, like wishful thinking that he does. But there is clearly a compounding interest problem that he has in the polling, and that Republicans have by towing the line for him, and that is different than it was in the first term. And in many ways, again, COVID salvaged his economic failures by creating a situation where the whole world economy was fucked. So you couldn't notice that he actually drove us into a recession in the fourth year. January 2020, the U.S. before COVID took hold entered a recession. Over the Christmas holiday and into the beginning of 2020, all the markers were there that we were going to be in a recession, that we were already headed into one. And COVID swept in and was so bad, it was like a snake bite, covered by a shark bite. It masked the impact of it. So he never had a
Right.
comeuppance on that part of it, but he gave him an out. It gave him something to blame, right? And
Even though the snake bite had the venom.
exactly, yeah, exactly. And by the way, is what ultimately killed his economic, successes. And I went through this last week because I was like, am I misquoting some of my numbers? I just want to go back and double check a couple of times. Our bailout of COVID, the COVID relief funds, was less than I thought it was, ultimately in direct payments to both businesses and individuals and forgiven grants and all that kind of stuff. It was around $6 trillion. The hole in the economy was 20 trillion. 20 to 22 trillion dollars was lost in revenue, people dying and their businesses collapsing, bankruptcies, all that kind of shit. Lost revenue from businesses while they were shut down, restaurants and business, all that shit, right? We tried to patch a $20 trillion hole with $6 trillion, and we're paying interest on the $6 trillion, which will drive the cost up $175 billion a year in interest forever until we pay that money off, which I don't see us doing in the near term at all. So America, congratulations. We just bought a mega mansion that we can barely afford, and we've got to pay it off over time. It's not doom and
I
gloom.
think they call that in the UK. I think they call that in the UK simple maths.
Yes, right. Maths. Yes, the plurals of math. Never don't add addition to math, mathematics as a process. So, and sometimes they say mats if their accent's really heavy, which sounds doormats, whatever. So here's the current. Like, I agree with you that most of the time he doesn't give a fuck, or at least he presents the idea that he doesn't give a fuck. But he sure bitches a lot for somebody who doesn't give a fuck. Like that thing he wrote, I'm sure you saw, of to Candace Owens and Tucker and Alex Jones and all that, was fucking 3 pages long. Like he's yelling more at them than he is at the Ayatollah. So I think,
and believe me, like I said, I think he gives a fuck.
matters.
He definitely gives a fuck. I just don't think it's about the polling so much, or like what the position that he's put in the Republican Party in right now, leading into midterms. I think it's more about his egotistical, sociopathic nature. You know what I mean? Like that's what's drawing him to react.
He can stand maggots he can stand maggots not liking him. It's just the elite maggotry he wants the attention and adoration of. So they've got to love him.
It's the attention that's getting. Right.
Right. And also that, Tucker Carlson should like him and people respect him in the, in conservative circles or some shit in this fantasy land that Trump lives in. And if those people turn on him, he wants their attention in the same way that, like, he shits all over CNN and MSNBC and NBC and ABC. And yet that's who he would love to be with. He would love to be beloved by CNN. He doesn't give a shit. He's already got Fox, and he doesn't like. It's this "what have you done for me lately?" They're his side piece now. Like, they're never going to leave. They're his third and fourth sister wife, but he really wants the big prize, which is CNN or 60 Minutes, those kind of things. But apparently Trump is, and this is a quote from this Axios, but an administration official thing. He's over it. He wants it done. He doesn't like Iran holding its control of the strait over the Middle East. He doesn't like them holding this over our heads. He doesn't want to fight anymore, but he will if he feels he has to. Like,
yeah, again, directly showing that he's backed himself and us into this corner, which there is no off ramp, or there is no good off ramp. There is no off ramp that even resets us to, again, 8 or 9 weeks ago. I'm losing track at this point when it began, but somewhere in that range. Like there's no clear, okay, this is the goals that we achieved. Here's our justification. Here's the outright victory that we achieved. No matter what happens now, this enemy, Iran, that he says he's eliminated the entire Navy, eliminated the entire Air Force, struck 15, 20,000 of this and that,
right.
Even though, again, the newest reporting suggests that even the U.S. intelligence assessments say that nearly 50% of Iran's drone and missile capabilities still exist. And then with them continuing to dig out further capabilities, they could be up to even as high as 70% of where they were before they started this war. So again, talking about the lies that have been told by this regime, the Donald Trump regime, and like the effectiveness of the U.S. military and how much they've eradicated, Iran's military capabilities. Like we're seeing the direct reporting from his own intelligence to fly in the face of that. You know what I mean? It's like, so at every single turn, this is nothing but chaotic bullshit, bluster, market manipulation. Both sides, I say in my show, both sides to a certain extent are delusional. Like to suggest or to think that like Iran's under no pain, that they're not being affected by this in any way is ridiculous. Not saying that anybody's outright saying that, but again, I think both sides to an extent are delusional to the power that they hold in this situation.
The leadership of both places. Like I said this in the last hour with John. I was like, I've never felt more of a kinship with the Iranian people because we're both being ruled over by arrogant assholes with dreams of ruin the world. And especially now. So I said last week when Trump was like, we're talking to the people. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead real quick.
No, I was going to say, but everything that Donald Trump says, all of these genocidal True Social posts, all of this, we are going to eradicate the roads, bridges, railways, taking out, like that has a way of bringing the people that were once against this regime, right, and may still be to a large extent against this regime on board with, maybe dealing with it a little bit more to feel that sense of nationalism. Like, okay, if they're just going to say they're going to wipe us out entirely, if they're going to turn Tehran into glass and all the shit that this administration said, like, okay, maybe I will start to feel something about the people that are seemingly defending me at this point. You know what I mean? Because that's it's having the opposite effect that Trump wants to. And again, we learned in World War II, you can't bomb a civilian population into capitulation. You can't bomb a civilian population into like degradation. You can in their lifestyle, but not as far as support for the regime or support for the hierarchy. Like it just intensifies their support. It brings them together, much like it did in Britain, much like it did in Germany. I mean, we go through all the instances that we can talk about, and it just never had that effect that Vice Marshal Harris wanted it to have, or any of the American leadership wanted it to have, of breaking the backs of the civilian, like their resiliency. You know what I mean? It just never had that impact
until the total awful, which is Hiroshima and Nagasaki, because the Imperial Japan and the leadership, the following, the religious-like following of Imperial Japan, of the of the emperor, collapsed after those two attacks, and America had to be part of a rebuilding and with creating almost a new Japan from scratch. And they've been an ally ever since. The worry that I have is that Trump will take that lesson and think that it's somehow easy or predictable that this would go the exact same way, because the Imperial Japan was based on this kind of illusion of almost a cult-like leader, as opposed to tied to, I mean, I suppose there was a Shintoism reasoning behind it, but it didn't have the kind of grip that Shia Muslims have, and their relation to an Ayatollah and a leader like that. It was much looser, the worldwide, and it didn't spread through the rest of Asia. There was enough racism between Japan, Korea, and China amongst themselves to isolate that, where that would not be the case with Shia Muslims of all stripes in North Africa and in Lebanon and in other places. So that, there's, I think he's going to take the wrong lesson from that. And that's, I think, everybody's nuclear concern in this. What I said last week, when they were talking about, I kept saying over and over, when they were doing we're negotiating with the top people and the best people, and we're talking to and I was like, who? Fucking who? And and who says that they spoke for the Iranian people then, or do now, or aren't
Right.
brand new, and therefore the IRGC is just checking to see if they like what they come back with, and if they don't, next, right? So who the fuck are you negotiating with?
Right.
So the one of the big things that came up was, I was like, Vahidi, the IRGC general guy, I was like, this is kind of who's running shit right now. Because in a war situation, in a country like that, where the leadership is brand new or has been folded up, and the illusion of democracy that they do have underneath it, the presidency, the parliament, was Galabaf, is the guy who's been kind of the spokesperson overall. He's
Mhm.
now reporting to Vahidi. Like, and it's obvious, even, in an extreme wartime, the entire country is being attacked and the leadership has been killed. Therefore, the military, it was almost an accidental military coup that was going to happen in these situations.
Well,
Even if it was,
it's widely reported that the Mojtaba is much more closely aligned and affiliated with the IRGC. So possibly while he's dealing with whatever supposed injuries or being
Mhm.
sidelined to whatever extent, or not wanting to venture out into public or make his
Yeah,
location known for whatever reason. I mean, it stands to reason that he would with his close ties and affiliation to the IRGC, probably delegate some of the responsibilities, if not most of the military responsibilities, considering that's the main aspect of this, is how they can control, the military aspects, or how they can at least feint that they have control over the military
right.
aspects around the strait and stuff like that. So, it stands to reason that, but again, that just shows us the more hardline situation that we're in, the less, you can't predict. It's unpredictable. You know what I mean? It was a little bit
Hmm.
more predictable, at least with the last leadership. As erratic and as genocidal and as murderous as they were, and as much as they love to work with Putin and Russia and to help them in their fight against Ukraine, like, it was a lot more predictable. They were at least engaged
Right.
in some sort of talks as we were affecting this war, as we started kicking off this war. So again, by every metric, we are worse off, whether it's
Yeah.
geopolitically, whether it's the amount of power, leverage, and control that Iran has been afforded in this geographical area over the Strait of Hormuz. We've heard more and more about the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, which I brought up on the show I think, a month and a half ago at this point, right? So
Hmm.
something that has been talked about, consistently talked about, hasn't really come to fruition yet. But if it does, I mean, we're talking about, a substantial jump in not only the cost of what you're paying for goods because of the 12% of global shipping that happens to pass through the Red Sea and pass through that strait, but also added on to the control and the pressure put upon us and the world because of the control over the Strait of Hormuz. So again,
Hmm.
this has ample opportunity to get much more, to get much worse and to escalate much more than we've seen so far. Again, we've heard Israel already recalculating their target packages for strikes inside of Iran. We've heard reporting from the United States and clear-cut rhetoric from Pete Hegseth and Trump that they're locked and loaded. They're loading up with the best fucking weapons. So, I mean, again, you don't put on a condom unless you're going to screw. You know what I mean? So it's
Hmm.
like you got to look at what's happening on the ground, what both sides are saying, and then somewhere in the middle is probably the truth. And that's kind of what we're relegated to do now. You have to take all the information that's being said on both sides, look at it, and then be like, okay, what the fuck is actually happening? you know?
I would like to say, that your remark about you don't put on a condom unless you're ready to screw. There is one instance that I can think of when you're in a swamp or a lake and you're concerned about a particular type of leech.
What is that? The
Um,
pure coup?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
Or put it over your rifle. You know what I mean? I
Yeah,
guess, but
exactly.
what
Yeah,
are you
yeah.
gonna do?
Both. Yeah. One is for fighting. The other's for fun. Anyways, the reason I bring this up, and everybody will attest to this, is last week I was like, who the fuck do you guys think you're talking to? And who the fuck thinks they're going back? And what you ask them to do or insist that they do is going to be accepted by the people who never left the fucking country and traveled to Islamabad, right? These people are dug in. Um, And I brought up Vahidi last week. People can go back and check it. And I was like, this is what's currently happening. Well, Axios is now reporting. U.S. officials have said, within hours of Iraqi pronouncing the Strait open, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps fired on tankers trying to cross it, citing Trump's unwillingness to lift his own blockade. U.S. officials saw that as evidence of a divide between Speaker of Parliament Mohammed Bagher Ghalibaf and IRGC Commander Ahmad Vahidi. We thought they were negotiating with the right people. They had reached the cocktail of what they had agreed to, what would be announced, a senior administration official said. But what happened is the Iranian team went back and the IRGC and those kinds of people said, oh, no, you don't speak for us. By the way, senior administration official sounds like Trump or himself with a cleaned up quote. Now they have a real divide over there between these factions, and we're not sure who's going to win it. We hope the team we negotiated with will. A second U.S. official told Axios, "We aren't sure who's in charge, and neither do they. That's going to have to work itself out." I'm like, the fuck are you talking about? Something's going to be signed this afternoon.
Well, again, we couldn't even get who our delegates were going to be that we were going to send. I mean, I read on the show yesterday at least 15 different reports that said J.D. Vance was going. Steve Witkoff says he's going. Right. Donald Trump says he's not going. Mike Waltz says he's going. Donald Trump says he's not going. I mean, it was back and forth at least 10 times that I read. So we can't even get who we're going to send there. We can't even get the delegates right. I mean, that's kind of the lowest fucking hanging fruit is like, right. Okay, who at least are you going to send? You know what I mean? Can we at least get that fucking right? And I thought I saw that.
It's a long fucking flight too.
Like I saw that Vance is supposed to leave for Washington. It says Vance is now expected to leave Washington for Pakistan on Tuesday, tomorrow, for Iran talks. U.S. officials to the New York Times. So obviously nothing tonight, right? So
right, and also
if they're planning for something to be signed tonight, I guess they have a little more waiting to do.
And again, who the fuck are they negotiating with? About over what? And the ceasefire ends Wednesday.
Right. That the whole thing is crazy. And again, what about the war powers resolution? Like, we're steadily creeping up on that 60-day window that the president has where he's supposed to go back to Congress. And if Congress doesn't, again, continuously approve authorize the military action, then the troops are supposed to be withdrawn, right? I know he gets that 30-day window, a 30-day, but I think that's, in fact, if they do initiate the withdrawal, they have time to set that up and to make planning and stuff like that. I don't think he just gets to play with that extra 30 days. But I don't hear a ton of people in Congress yelling and screaming about this. Again, there should be a ticker on the side of fucking CNN and MSNBC. You know, this is the amount of days that the war's been going on. This is how much time he gets. Like, he's already gone around Congress to affect this. We already heard from James Comer the other day talking about how we're at this, like, this existential war with Iran. So clearly we're at war. These people have not, they have not changed their rhetoric, even though they tried desperately to do so at the beginning of this and not say war and to not, to call it a special military operation straight out of Putin's playbook. But again, They just can't help themselves. They love war so much. They love the bloodshed. They love the fact that they get to wield the military as this political weapon that they need to call them warriors, and they need to call it war, and they need to make sure that people know exactly what's going on. But that brings different legal ramifications. Like, that brings different, policies in place that we need to follow. So again, are we just going to ignore all of this and allow him to continue this, or are we going to go by the book and actually, bring the power back to Congress? I don't know.
Okay, so there is. It won't matter. My concern is in this situation is that if he's rushed in this, then he's gonna. The chances of him using a tactical nuke on the weapon sites to go, nobody can go near that ground for 10,000 years. We didn't bomb the cities, we bombed the nuke sites, and there was already nuclear dust there anyways, so we nuked their nuke dust because he's running out of time is a real possibility. I don't want to give these assholes any ideas, but that's a real possibility that, but I also think it's just as real that they just blow off the fucking timeline and wait for somebody to file something. It'll be a Democrat. There won't be enough votes to push it through. Mike Johnson will call fucking recess or never let it get to the floor. And they'll just keep punting hoping that Trump magically pulls this fucking diving plane out at the last second.
Well, one, I don't think nukes are ever going to come into play. That's just my opinion. No matter what the fuck happens, I don't think anybody. I think there's people that would absolutely, or at least I'm hoping there'd be people that stand up. But I don't even think that's even coming into consideration. I don't see what benefit would happen. I know you could say you can't go near there, but again, there's a lot more that would have to come with that and would come after that as well. But
right.
I don't know. I have trouble kind of buying the fact that Trump, like in any way, shape, or form, is going to, I don't know. It's just, the whole thing is just so, it's impossible to come out of this with some like rational thought and to try to put the pieces together of the puzzle to have like some clear picture, because it's just, I don't think nukes would ever come into play.
Dude, I've been saying, just because it's stupid doesn't mean it's not the plan. And Donald Trump wants to go down in history as the toughest fucking president ever. And the guy who would finish the fights nobody else wanted to pick. And he went into Iran and he kidnapped their leader and the guy's wife. He's, and he's basically working with the same administration on his fucking, oil and crypto venture shit that he's doing with Don and Eric. Cuba will be a part of that as well. Like the end, if he can see himself like killing the Ayatollah and ending the Castro regime, he thinks there's like 20%, the peanut crowd will just guarantee a cush existence and him written down as the greatest president in history for the rest of his life, even if it isn't. Even if they can't.
I just don't think the power that we do or don't hold in government should have any control over the fucking politicians' voice boxes, right? I mean, whether or not we have the amount of numbers to effectuate this change or to effectuate whatever policies is, I think, irrelevant in my case. They should be out there screaming and yelling about it, letting the American people know about it, educating people on what the fucking policies and the laws that we have in this country are. And I'm not ready to give those laws and policies up in the way that we're actually supposed to go about doing things, because we're afraid of how erratic and crazy Donald Trump is. Because that's another one of his ploys, is to make people think that he's doing this and he's so erratic and that you can't control him and you can't contain him. I'm not buying it as far as like, okay, we have to make sure, don't worry about what the Constitution says. Don't worry about congressional powers, because if we rush him, maybe he's going to hit the fucking nuke button. I'm not
saying that would be, I would say curtail your behavior. I wouldn't say curtail, Congress should curtail their behavior. I'm just saying as a concerned citizen, that's what comes to my head. If I was in Congress, I would be doing exactly what you're talking about, which was, every day showing up like 26 days till this asshole has to ask us. 27 days. They still haven't had a committee hearing to let us know that we're here. 8 days that we, and when I get to 60.
Yeah, it's like Jessica Chastain in Zero Dark 30, where she continues to write the numbers on the guy's window. Like, it's been this many days since we found Bin Laden. We haven't done shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck are we doing here?
Right.
I'd be doing that like all over the place.
So our time, Wednesday our time, the ceasefire ends. That's tomorrow in Iran. And so Trump called into PBS. Whoops, hold on 1 second. This guy right here. Trump called into PBS and did an interview with them because he's been calling people in the middle of fucking meetings. And they said, what happens if the ceasefire expires tomorrow evening? And Trump said, then lots of bombs start going off. Is Iran still participating in the talks that will be happening in Islamabad? Will they still be there? I don't know. I mean, they're supposed to be there. We agreed to be there, although they say we didn't. But no, it was set up, and we'll see whether or not it's there. If they're not there, that's fine too. What do you want from the negotiating team in Islamabad? No nuclear weapons. Very simple. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Very simple. Well, they don't have one. And again, what? That they only agree to that so that you'll give them charging tolls on the strait. You'll allow the regime to, give money to proxies. Well, all the other shit. We'll throw that out the window. As long as they don't have a nuke, they can do anything they fucking want, which is just garbage. Obviously, this is nonsense. Jared Kushner has a lot of business and financial interests in the Middle East region from Saudi Arabia and other countries. Is it appropriate for him to be negotiating there, do you think? Well, he was there before, a long time before, and he's purely negotiating for the fact that they're not going to have a nuclear weapon. Whether you have business or not, everybody knows that's the right thing. He's a very good negotiator. You see, we're not negotiating anything other than the fact that they will not have a nuclear weapon, and that's pretty basic when you get right down to it. So, that's it. I sent my A team. He's done an excellent job. He doesn't participate with Saudi now. As you know, he doesn't do that. He has a business, but he doesn't participate now, which is obviously horseshit. Secretary Wright said that gas may not be lower than $3 until later this year or next year. Is that a concern? I disagree with him totally. I think it'll come roaring down if it ends. If we end it, if Iran does what they should do, it will come roaring down. Like, it's fucking gibberish.
It's gonna break the roof going down.
Yeah, exactly. It'll come roaring back to zero.
But really, I mean, I just think that no matter what happens here, Iran's going to be stronger geopolitically. Like, no matter what happens, Donald Trump, this is going to look like the 38 Munich Agreement. Like, Donald Trump or J.D. Vance is going to come back waving some fucking white piece of paper with the Iranians' fucking signature on it, and it's just going to afford them, again, like you said, either the tolls to charge through the strait. We're going to have to take the affected routes that they say we're going to have to take as far as the shipping, right? The $20 billion that was reported from the frozen assets possibly being another kind of sticking point, another talking point to kind of entice them to go along with signing some sort of deal. Like, this whole thing, there's no way for us to come out of this looking victorious or looking like this was worth it. I mean, not only the money spent, but also the lives lost. Also, I mean, not only in the U.S. military, but, you know, all over the Middle East that have you know, paid the price because of this and continue to do so in different areas. Like, there's no possible way to look like you're not just appeasing this regime now. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, okay, shit, we fucked up. We didn't recognize we either didn't recognize or didn't prepare for the power that you guys actually fucking had, regardless of the Navy, regardless of your Air Force. Like, we thought that these old ships, if we took those out, that was going to be awesome. They could give a fuck less. They didn't need those motherfuckers. You know what I mean? Take the ships, take the planes. Guess what? We got the strait. You know what I mean? So it's like, there's no way for the United States to come out of this without looking like this is just straight up appeasement, saying that we fucked up, right hand up, and like, what can we do to fix the situation that we created? That wasn't a problem before we created the situation.
Well, that's why I don't think he can actually do that. Because that means a total collapse of everything that he has said and done. That is him being called on the carpet for this all being bullshit from the start. And I just don't see the level of maturity necessary to regard it that way. Go, okay, well, you know what? The Iran war was too much, and we got to back off. We're gonna work out something with them, and like, it's like Putin doing that with fucking Ukraine. I just don't see it. Like, there are no mature voices in that whole fucking cabinet, and you know, Pete Hegseth can't wait to get his trigger off again, and neither can Trump at this point. Like, there's a certain point where they're just doing this to save face amongst their buddies, much less giving a shit what the electorate thinks. So I don't see, you know, this kind of like backing out to some version of normalcy, you know, being possible.
No, they've kind of, like I said, backed themselves into a corner where kind of pushing forward and plowing ahead is their only kind of course of action, is trying to, you know, affect this again of, you know, complete and total victory, this
Right.
complete capitulation of the entire country of Iran. Like, that's
There's
kind
no
of
way.
the
They've
course
gotta
that
give.
they've put themselves on.
They would have to. I mean, literally, to get the kind of agreement he's talking about, we'd have to give them all their frozen assets, which is somewhere in the order of like $220 billion. So you think Donald Trump's going to acquiesce to giving $220 billion to Iran when he shit all over, you know, Obama for giving $1.8 billion in cash of, by the way, funds that were Iran's from oil sales to Iraq that were sitting in a bank there. They weren't flown from the United States. They were flown from Iraq to Iran. And it would entail him minimum giving 20 billion, and in total, which is Iran's apparently another red line. They say they won't go, be, you know, because they're going to need $200 billion to rebuild after all this happened. The idea that they're not going to have long range or medium range weapons in the face of like an expansionist militaristic leadership in Israel right now is for their own self-defense is just fucking dumb tactically, strategically. I mean, what you're even if you, no matter how you feel about them, and I don't like them at all, you're still asking them to pants themselves and turn around and spread their cheeks, right? There's no way.
Yeah. And I've seen nothing where they've even suggested the possibility of giving up their enriched uranium. Like, I've seen nothing
call
where
it
it's
sacred.
being like thrown on. Right, that's what I mean. So it's like this whole fake deal that, even if they were to somehow get this, that wouldn't remove, and again, depending on what the deal stated, but that wouldn't remove their knowledge or ability. And again, if they had the power to rebuild their entire program after it was annihilated in 6 months, then what's to stop them, even if they did give up their enriched uranium for in so many years, having the knowledge, the manpower, and the know-how to continue to do that? You know what I mean? It's like the whole thing is nonsensical.
Yeah.
The deeper you dive into what they're trying to say, and again, I don't put it past them for just lying about it too. You know what I mean? Giving them the money, giving them their frozen assets, and lying about what it was from, lying about what it was about. You know what I mean? We will know, but to what extent their base would give a shit or buy that. You know what I mean? It's like I don't know.
Well,
at this
okay,
point,
if Friday,
they're going to try. They have to lie about this somehow to come out of this with any victory. It's going to have to be a lie.
Friday, you got some indication of how ready maggots are to just like jump on board with this being over and putting it in the rearview mirror and focusing on the midterms. And it might have worked if he did this closer to when they were actually going to end it. If he'd been telling even marginally the truth, that they were close to a deal and whatever, but he just made it the fuck up. Like you couldn't ask someone in the State Department to list who we're negotiating with. Like they couldn't tell you. So the idea that we're close to a fucking deal, and never mind the fact that the motherfucker tore up the last one. So who's going to make a deal with that guy?
No, I mean, that's the whole thing. Not only that did they tear up the last one, but again, during active negotiations and talks, this is when we engaged this war. This is when we started this war to begin with. So it's time after time, example after example of why Donald Trump and this regime should not be trusted, why the Iranians are rightfully skeptical and rightfully are demanding that the United States jump when they say jump. And Donald Trump has said how high every single time, whether it was, trying to curtail his rabid dog over there and Bibi Netanyahu, to make sure that the Iranians would even come to the table the first time, because that's what they stipulated. If the Israel Lebanon isn't part of this, then we're not coming to the talk. So Donald Trump had to go on his Truth Social, announce it before the Israeli Security Council could vote on it, so that he could, look like the strong guy, and so that, Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu couldn't ruin his chances to have whatever these talks were supposed to come to. It's just, the whole thing is ridiculous. We're playing like this, scrambling behind the scenes at every turn. And again, like you said, the people and they're just like the maniacal, just the overwhelmingly militaristic style of like Pete Hegseth and the rest of these people who, again, you said is just itching with his finger on the trigger, ready to resume, strikes inside of Iran and to sink more ships. I mean, the rhetoric alone has told us enough about their sick, disgusting fucking nature.
Right. Trump. So this is from Drop Site News. Trump's erratic behavior may tank negotiations in Iran, says, warning of significantly greater costs to the U.S. if the war resumes, which is bluster from their part. But the important part of this is he told Drop Site that if Trump starts bombing again, Iran will cut off all diplomatic channels and focus on fighting. They're just gonna, dunk on him with Lego fucking videos and just fight. There aren't going to be any more negotiations. But here's the thing. Again, you don't even have to side with the regime in Iran to recognize tactically and strategically. This makes no fucking sense to negotiate with Trump and believe that he'll keep his word. He tore up the last one that you had with another president. Who the fuck thinks he's going to keep his word on this one? I mean, it could just be literally like you're basically arguing like, don't worry about it. Look, all I'm asking, put this pillowcase over your head. I promise I won't punch you in the face like last time. That's what you're asking him to do.
And it's like the Iranians at some point could be just showing up to these talks doing kind of like the same thing that the United States was doing, just kind of stringing them along. Meanwhile, they're digging up more fucking the launch sites. They're digging up more missiles. They're digging up, they're building more, whatever they did. They're getting stronger in the background to whatever extent that Donald Trump said that they were militarily defeated, right? Meanwhile, they're like, yeah, we'll continue to show up. Don't worry about it. Don't, you know what I mean? We'll another 2 weeks, do another 2 weeks. Meanwhile, we're digging up missiles every single day. And then one day they're just going to say, fuck it. And they're going to start striking striking, basically all the ships that they possibly can in the Strait. Next thing you know, we're going to have a really serious situation on our hands, way above and beyond what we're seeing now. They're going to activate the Houthis. The Bab el-Mandeb's going to be shut down. Next thing you know, the fucking global shipping is in a tailspin, even above and beyond where it is now. That's going to filter down to you and I as far as costs. That's ultimately who pays the price in this. And I like to remind people as much of a crunch we're under here in the U.S. as far as the up and down, the oil prices up and down, and pretty much the consistent increase in gas prices, clothes, shoes, fucking goods at the store, whatever it may be, anything that comes by plane, train, automobile is costing more because of what's taking place right now. But the Asian markets and the European markets, the fact that jet fuel is
Africa,
set to run out if something isn't
South
figured
America,
out is like, just goes to show you that like this is affecting a lot more people above and beyond just us here in the United States, and that to a large extent more than it's affecting us here in the United States. So a lot of people's lives are at risk. A lot of ways of life are at risk here. As hyperbolic as it sounds to say, it's really not. When you're talking about hitting the fresh water supply of the Middle East, I mean, we're talking not tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. Like, you're talking about millions and millions of people that could be put at risk by that. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, and this applies to like Trump's whole like tariff attacks, primarily last year. If watched in context, it looks very much like, if we get a historical distance from this 10 years from now, that this is a PNAC Heritage Foundation Project 2025 plan to scoop in a bunch of money, war chest the United States, put a wall up around our economy so that it's less affected than other countries, and then set off something that wrecks their economy, so we're the only big boy in town. Like that, very, and it's like imperialism via vacuum. That you don't have to, it doesn't even have to be adventurous imperialism. You can literally just tear down other countries or let them, fall apart under the weight of their own connectivity that you've run interference for. You cut off arteries, and those arteries instead, you don't own those countries outright like you would if you invaded them, but they've got to come to you if they want anything in the future. That and therefore, Trump has leverage with his tariffs. This sounds like shit Besant and Soros did with the fucking British pound.
And it's done incompetently. Like, they can't even do that right.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That's what, like Fugelsang was talking about how selfish they are. I was like, they can't even do selfish right. Like, I'm amazed at this part of it. So, the according to them, okay, here, this is while the officials said Iran prefers to make a comprehensive deal with the U.S. that would address nuclear enrichment, offer sanctions relief, and establish a long-term non-aggression framework, Tehran believes the window for an agreement is rapidly closing as a result of maximalist U.S. demands and Trump's erratic behavior. Our assessment is that Trump effectively lacks both a coherent plan and the capacity to secure even a temporary agreement, which is also where we are with them, because there's no reason to believe that the people who bring this agreement back to the IRGC leaders, that they'll sign off on it. The official said his decision-making appears to be grounded in Israeli political and security assessments conveyed to him on a daily basis. I would argue MBS and the Qataris and like the UAE also should be into that, because he's also dancing to their jig as well. The senior official has direct access to Tehran's internal deliberations. He requested anonymity because he's not supposed to talk about it, whether that's true or not or whatever. There hasn't been any real progress on the positions of both respective sides. Both sides are just signaling behind the scenes that they're open to reaching an agreement. Well, obviously not, if you're not making any real progress, and you've got literally directly conflicting points of interest.
And within minutes of what Trump announces, you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
We're talking about, I think it was less than 3 hours after I ended the show the other day on Friday, after we called out, we went through everything that Donald Trump had posted, and then we went directly to what the Iranian officials were saying and the spokespeople were saying. And it was like, not one of these things lines up.
Yeah.
Not a single thing that he said am I seeing here. Not a single thing that they said is being am I reading in what he's saying? Like, not like, what the hell? Like, how could you possibly be that far off? And that was clearly an effort to manipulate the markets, to say,
Yeah.
hey, you throw in your money now, I'll say this, the markets will react in this type of way, and next thing you know, you're taking your billions of dollars out, and we could do this thing all over again. Going back to the tariffs, he did it with the tariffs as well. The tariffs are on, the tariffs are off. The market would react, and then people would either short it or they'd invest in whatever the hell that they thought would go up during one of his other announcements. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's clearly the fact that he has not only no rhyme or reason for what he's doing in this war, he has no understanding of why he got into it. Again, I truly believe that this guy is just the most moronic person in the world, and he was straight up led by the nose into this, and he was fed all the lines of propaganda and bullshit. Ultimately, it's his responsibility to say yes or no to that, so it doesn't absolve him of any responsibility or accountability for this whatsoever. But the fact that he was in there and saying, well, it sounds like everything's going to go 100 for 100, because nothing ever goes wrong militarily. Everybody knows that the best laid plans militarily always stay in place as soon as the first shot's fired, and that's not how the saying goes. I'm being facetious in case anybody in the chat didn't catch on to that one. But it's like, he has no clear-cut understanding, so he can't make an accurate assessment about what to do next, which is inevitably leading us into a more chaotic and unstable situation. You know what I mean? Like, somebody that would have to have a clear understanding of, hey, if we do this, they have the ability to retaliate against the strait. We should probably do something, put some plans in place to mitigate that retaliation, right? They had nothing. That was not in place. They didn't think it was going to be possible. They weren't going to hit the U.S. bases. They weren't going to hit Qatar. They weren't going to hit UAE. They weren't going to hit Bahrain. That's what was told to him, and that's what he believed. Unfortunately, all of that was fucking incredibly false and stupid, and could have been told you by any wargaming that anybody has ever done. You know what I mean? Me and you could have done a war game, and we'd be like, okay, Hal, what would your next move here? You know what I mean? If I did this, what would your next move be? And you'd say, okay, look at that geographical position in which so much of the fucking oil flows through. You know what I mean? Let's maybe think if we could do something with that. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't take a military genius to be like, that's probably something you want to mitigate against.
And it's not just because I was named after a computer, but I think my response would be, interesting game, Professor Falcon. The only way to win is not to play. But what Trump doesn't realize is that by calling every president before him weak and stupid, and saying I'm doing what they didn't have the guts or that they should have done, it puts him into a box where he can never recognize, this is not the reason they didn't do it is not because they're weak or stupid. It's quite the opposite, is that it requires a lot of strength to not become a genocidal psychopath. To paraphrase Chris Rock, peace has to fly to something that war can just walk to. And there is a situation here where if the default is erratic and untrustworthy and in a negotiation about a peace deal, the default is war, and very quickly, because one side or the other is coming for the end of this. And in the case of Trump, because of his bluster about destroying the entire civilization, the regime has to know that he's not going to worry about regime change issues anymore, right? He's not, if he threatened to kill all the civilians, you think he's going to back down from doing a full-on regime change war with boots on the ground and shit like that? Hey, I'm not there to kill all the civilians. I'm just sending troops in to eradicate the IRGC leadership. Or, because that's the next place. Like, I don't think they're going to bomb the bridges. I do think they're going to bomb the electrical facilities and bridges that reach areas where the bombs and missiles might be hidden, like militarily strategic ones, not everyone in the country, like he says, because he doesn't know anything. But I do think there's a chance that they will bomb every IRGC related facility in the entire country, every police station, every, anything that's for like putting down the civilian population that they may have avoided just because, if you do that, crime runs rampant in the streets, and, the public might hate you for that. But since the IRGC is the new regime change means no more IRGC. So I think that's what they'll, they're going to call this off and bomb a bunch of other places just to show them they mean business. And they're probably going to sink a tanker or two. They're going to, we fired the first shot at a ship at a peaceful ship that stopped it anyways. The Iranians hit a few that caused fires on board, but we actually disabled one by blowing up its engine. We told everybody to move out of the engine room and then disabled the ship and took it over. That's the first.
Yeah, I love that they brag about that. They brag about one ship, one oil tanker being taken over. Meanwhile, the other was 2 weeks ago. Donald Trump said that the people he was negotiating with had sent him 20. You know what I mean? So it's like, is this a big victory? Again, you said the other day that you got 20. Again, nobody really knows what the fuck came from that. But
well, I'll tell you what it was. It was Pakistani flagged ships that were going to China. Right. So that's why we're having these talks in fucking Islamabad. Because that wasn't a favor, from the Iranians to Donald Trump. That was a favor to the Pakistanis from Trump letting those get through. It's just, and again, just because it's stupid doesn't mean it's not the plan. Boston Brian has a fantastic show, by the way. You should subscribe to it immediately if you haven't already. Give him a thumbs up. He's got a Patreon as well. Is it patreon.com/Boston Brian?
You got it, brother. Right on.
And I appreciate it. I appreciate you. It's been one of the great joys of the last couple of years, getting to know you and being able to get together with you at a couple of events and that kind of thing. It's been a real pleasure, and I appreciate your voice and I appreciate what you have to say out there. And I'm glad you're doing it on the regular. So just had to put that.
Well, the feeling is overwhelmingly mutual, my friend. I've thoroughly enjoyed getting the chance to meet you and talk politics, and get these shows together every now and again, and to meet the sparklers and to meet you personally, to get to know you and the type of guy you are and your intelligence. It's been a real joy to me as well. So again, much love to you and Summer and everybody else that's involved in your family, because for putting up with us here as the guest on the show. So thank you for giving us the time. I appreciate, again, I'm serious. So thank you for again, as you always say, a rising tide lifts all boats. And I think you stick to that, which is something that I really respect a whole fucking lot. I also love the fact that you have built this community here of people that not only support you so much, but are so willing to support other communities as well. So I'm very flattered every time that I see CSL pop in with all of the other sparklers to come say hi after you guys finish off a show. So I really do appreciate it. We're slowly getting to 20,000 subscribers on YouTube. We're hoping to get there by the time midterms rolls around, so we could be, I always say, so we can have the most weight thrown behind my punches. I want to really ruffle some feathers. I want to be kicking up some dust. I want people to notice what I'm saying and to take notice of the community that we're building. So it's only with your help and generosity that I'm going to be able to get this. So I really do appreciate you and your community. You're both fantastic, and I love you both bunches.
Yeah, and huzzah to the lobsters, which is your crowd.
Yeah. a little take. We got the Bryantologists on. Well, we had to do something, and we had to mock Trump's cult in some way.
Sure.
So I like to call my house the house in the church of Bryantology, and all my fans the Bryantologists. So, but again, that's just a play on the. That's why I'm working on the.
That's why I'm working on the Sparksist Megafesto. So
we're almost at 90. Brother. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, we're almost at 90,000. If you like the show and you like Boston Brian, you like the guests I have on or whatever, hit subscribe. I have like my watch time and all that kind of stuff, and I'm sure you experience some of this as well. My watch time and my regular viewer numbers are very high. Like I have, my average stream watch is 45 minutes or longer, and that's like all the big guys, the Tim Dillons of the world and all this stuff who have like millions of subscribers, they're at like 20 to 15 minutes. And I think that should count for something. So hit the like.
I think we're doing ourselves a little bit of a disservice, if I may just pop in and interject for a second with the amount of live streams that we do. I really think that a lot more people are heavily focused on the 5 to say 20-minute edited videos on a certain subject. Whereas, we try to jam in as much information as we possibly can into the 2 hours, 2.5 hours we may be on. And, it's just a lot of people don't have that attention span. They don't have that.
Apparently mine do, though.
They may just.
That's the point. Mine do. Like they're in for 45 minutes almost of every stream. That's kind of incredible. And the Destinies of the world and Hassan and others, they're on all fucking day. So like hours and hours and hours. I mean, granted, a lot of Hassan show is like him electrocuting his dog or leaving the room while someone else's fucking video plays and poaching other people's content, like the dirtbag that he is, who has the same feelings about the age of consent that Alan Dershowitz has.
I think we could have a good conversation on this as well, because I'm not totally in that camp. I obviously don't agree with anything, everything that anyone says, and I could absolutely spend some time rightly calling out some shit that has pissed me off. But I think to a large extent, there's more benefit there than there is waste, if I will put it that way.
I agree, but I think it's the creation of a cul-de-sac that never goes anywhere, because he doesn't drive voters. He drives them away from the voting booth the same way TYT does.
Like, how can you say that with the reaction that he gets on college campuses, though? You know what I mean? And I know that's just one aspect that we could pull at, but I mean, these people that are actively and seem really knowledgeable about the facts doesn't show somebody that wouldn't get out and vote, somebody that speaks up at these events, talks to him, goes out to see Abdul al-Sayed and all these other people.
Nope. Statistically, they don't. They just don't. They start
the
showing
younger
up.
generation statistically are the least likely to show up to vote.
But
yes,
even
as far
that group,
as the ones that Hassan is affecting, I don't think we have any clear data to suggest that that's not having an effect either.
Well, also, it's hard to say whether he's actually affecting them, but by and large, he's in the same park of like, nobody's good enough, so it always mutes the vote no matter what. It will always mute it more than it grows.
Oh yeah.
Period.
I believe me, like I said, I could absolutely call out some of his, everybody's the kind of same type of rhetoric, and both sides are just as equally as bad bullshit. Absolutely, call out a lot of the statements that he made. There's also, like you just said, you brought up yourself, he's on 8 hours a day. Like I'm only on 2 hours, and I've definitely not only misspoke, said some dumb shit, pissed some fucking people off. You know what I mean? Said some, maybe not above board stuff. So again, to a large extent, a lot of these kind of, popular clips that people would point to, I think you'd probably get a different aspect if you go back and look at the overall argument or the overall clip. And again, he benefits too from a lot of clips, like I was talking about, the short, like he's got a lot of other accounts that are built off of him that just clip his show. You know what I mean? So that helps his numbers as well. So a lot of people do like that 5 to 10 minute edited.
Yeah, no question. I mean, that's
short, right.
Joe Rogan does the exact same thing mechanically. There's JRE clips, and then there's a bunch of other clipping things, and there's even this big movement of paying clippers out there in third world countries, which a lot of them do, including Hassan, including Destiny and others, to feed those things out, and they get paid by the 100,000 views. And all these things in manufactured, cul-de-sacs where the shit never reaches anybody. But my issue overall is that anybody who's becoming a focused viewer of those guys in particular ends up not voting or being like those. You could materially trace the entirety of his streams in the last election to people not voting and a diminished vote for Harris. Clear as day.
Which is why I think it's more important to go on those places and have conversations.
I think it's hard for me to
suggest that I'm having an impact. And if, with the amount of people that watch my stream, and to suggest that, the 50 or 60,000 concurrent viewers that he has watching his, that he can't have an impact. And I just think it's ridiculous that the Democrats or anybody would say, let's excommunicate this as a platform to go on and try to get our ideas to people that are obviously involved in some way, shape, or form, right? I mean, how involved they are, but to get your ass out of a college dorm room and into a fucking into a meeting or into some, into a rally or whatever the fuck, like that's affecting change right there. Like that's step one at least. And then if we can get
we're not talking about somebody like Piers Morgan or somebody who interviews people, or even Rogan. In the case of Hassan, he's just playing videos by and large. He doesn't, his isn't an interview structure most of the time. So like it's not like that's the standard.
But I think he would cop to that, though. I don't think he would go out there and portray himself as some fucking journalistic interviewer that gets out and breaks these stories or anything like that. I mean, he's kind of, in my opinion, I think he's very down to earth and kind of like explains very well or portrays himself very well as what he is. He calls himself a clown a lot. He calls himself an idiot a lot. He says dumb shit a lot. But obviously, he's got some intelligence in there, and a lot of what he does say and what he wants to see happen, I would get behind. And again, I would also have the same conversations that you would
You
probably
would
have about some of the stupid shit
you
that he
wouldn't
said.
even right. You wouldn't even be having a conversation like TYT being part of a conversation if they didn't sell 60% of the time to the group that we're talking to. It's the other 40% of the time that is beyond just like fuck around and misspeak to full on voter suppression. I'm not playing around with this or being hyperbolic about it. That is genuinely the purpose. The same way that Russell Brand is. There is very little space between what Russell Brand and Hassan Piker say in terms of their ethical portrayal of stuff. They just, you know, uh, like Russell Brand, openly carries water for Trump by name, and Hassan writes off all but randos in the Democratic Party, for example. The result is the same. It's a bunch of people checking out and getting high on revolutionary bongs that don't end up voting because no human being will be able to live up to the purity test aspect of it. These are the sheepdogs of the purity testers. And calling yourself an idiot or dumb or saying you've made mistakes is a cop out in those ways, because you don't go back and say exactly where you were wrong and that kind of stuff. It becomes generic. It becomes a generic
Well, he
placeholder
very
that
much
allows
does, though. He very much does. I mean, he goes back and he explains his positions. He's had multiple shows and streams and videos where he's gone through every single one of the quotes and the things that the mainstream media and people that don't like him would bring up as far as like talking points against him. And he's gone back and shown the clips, and it's like, okay, well, if you actually go back and look at the entirety of what I said, you could clip that part out. But my point was to not only get your attention and to maybe it was hyperbolic, maybe it was over the top. But again, if you go back and look at the overarching segment and what I'm trying to get across as far as Medicare for all, or helping fucking poor people or vets or whatever the fuck, all of the policies that he wants to see in place. And I have no argument to the fact that there's an aspect of nihilism in there, and I think it stems from frustration at seeing the people tell us that they're going to do the right thing, trying to present themselves as being progressive. They're going to go in there and affect change, and then they get in there and they end up fucking bowing down and kissing ass to the establishment, kissing ass to APAC, and then we'd never see that change. And again, I just think it's ridiculous to think that we have politicians going on white nationalist programs, people that have said bigoted, racist, homophobic shit, and to this day still believe those things. Meanwhile, we're going to say, no, let's not sit down with Hassan Piker and try to, again, speak to. And a lot of these shows, it's not about the conversation between the two people.
Specifically,
it's the
who's
audience.
Who's refusing to go on Hassan Piker's show and talk to him? In the Democratic.
Slotkin, a bunch of them were already coming out and talking about it. There was a huge hit piece by, what was it, Third World, a third base, a third fucking something that came out, and it was picked up by all the establishment fucking all the establishment Democrats coming out and saying, yeah, that's something that I should never touch. We should never go on that. Meanwhile, you look up the shows that they've been on, and it's a lot of these fucking right-wing hacks, right-wing podcasts that they have no fucking problem talking to. Gavin Newsom got no problem talking to Ben Shapiro and Tim Pool and all these motherfuckers.
Well, you're talking.
All of a sudden,
hold on. I would argue that they
that's
go
just
on
an
those.
Example. He didn't say that.
I know that. But what I'm saying is, I think those people are going on to challenge those people directly.
No. They didn't. He didn't go on their show. That's the whole fucking point. I have no problem with Gavin Newsom going on Ben Shapiro's fucking show or Tim Pool's show to speak to their audience. But the second you bring Ben Shapiro and Tim Pool to your audience to let them fucking propagandize and bullshit your fucking audience that already is with you, that already is known, only thing that can happen there is for them to change in the opposite direction.
You mean Newsom bringing those people onto his show?
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay.
Correct. And not only that, but and again, if you're going to bring them on to disagree and to call them out, that's fucking awesome. I love it. That's exactly what you should be doing, but not to appease and to babysit and to fucking play patty cake and to agree with them the whole time. You know what I mean? Like, that's just not where we're going to get ahead in this fucking game. And it's not right to bring that bullshit to your audience, knowing what these people have spewed in the past without directly fucking confronting them on that bullshit.
Okay. Well, again,
it's a great conversation that we could have.
Yeah,
I don't want to take up too much of your time.
That's okay. No. This is worth having specifically, because I believe that in the case of like Tim Pool is a permanent fence sitter and a guy who is actually like almost his entire thing is based on not having an opinion while pretending not have an opinion while he spouts an opinion the entire time. So he speaks to this bullshit incel community that kind of act independent, if that makes sense. There's a bunch of those. I think Alex Jones originally started that. And so you've got like each one of them after Alex Jones's fall have been trying to carve off their little chunk, Tucker being the dweeb Alex Jones and Russell, Brand being the fucking hippie Alex Jones and Tim Pool being like the skater kid Alex Jones in his late 40s with no children, but whatever. Right. They're all trying to carve off their little piece of that group. And, Ben Shapiro being, I would argue, a true believer in what he believes. So sort of worth arguing with specifically because you're chipping away at a real argument, whereas Tim Pool, you're just dragging audience over from his side to try and hear your piece because they're never going to go there willingly. They're not going to watch the rest of Gavin Newsom's things. And again, I don't know if he's had either of these people on his guests. I'm just speaking in
he
those
has,
terms.
and Steve Bannon.
Right. And in those particular instances, I don't think anybody in his regular eyes are going to be hypnotized by what these assholes are saying. But the idea is that it for Steve Bannon's crowd or whatever to demonize Gavin Newsom after the conversation becomes increasingly hard. So it has a strategic value that goes beyond allowing Steve Bannon to pour bullshit into people's ears. It's more about Newsom going like demystifying him and as this democrat to some of the fringe aspect, the light side of the people who watch RAV or some shit like that. This is just me thinking from a strategic media standpoint in this regard and looking fearless because I'll have them on my show. Sure, I'll sit there and listen to you fucking talk, but I'm going to tell you what I think, and that's that. And we'll shake hands. And your dude shook my hand. This is the Macron handshake. Done towards the rest of MAGA tree, right? Is, that Macron shaking Trump's hand going, and by the way, thanks for the missiles when he didn't give any missiles, to Ukraine or whatever. And Trump now has to go, oh, you're welcome. And so now missiles are in their hands. Like that, there's a strategic public way of pulling people out. There is a huge difference though, between that single episodes of stuff with that media temp, whether it works or not is the debatable part. And I think that's a big part of this as well. Whether the attempt is worth it, meanwhile, I don't think Gavin Newsom is bringing on Steve Bannon so that his viewers can finally hear what Steve Bannon has to say. That clearly is not what's going on here. So there's another.
Well, he certainly didn't have him on to call him out. That's for damn sure.
Okay, well, that looks differently
because they did more agreeing than they did disagreeing. And and I understand your whole the media literacy and the look of it. But
that's about the weapon.
It failed on both sides because Gavin Newsom's crowd hated it, and the fucking people that were following Ben Shapiro or Gavin whatever his fucking name, Steve Bannon, came in and shit all over Gavin Newsom for being a fucking pussy. So
right, but
it
that's
didn't have
the chat
any effect on either side.
Hold on. These are the viewerships. I'm talking about the soft voter outside that. You're never going to turn those people that are in the chat room at RAV or the chat room on Newsom's to believe either of these guys. But there is a huge chunk of independents which are shifting this election, shifted it last time, will shift the midterms. Well, all these people who are like in this mushy middle, and those people won't have either watched it or whatever. They're like, oh, I think Newsom had Steve Bannon on or whatever. And they're, so Steve Bannon, I guess, doesn't hate him now or whatever. That's what they'll get from it. And those people will go, well, Newsom's obviously not a demon, Democrat, whatever. So I feel better about him than I might have before. That's the strategic part of it. The subset of the people like you and I who drink from the fire hose of news it's not going to sit the same way. It just does not enter our eye holes and ear holes the way it does the people who we have to convince that a public option in the ACA is ethical, moral, right, logical, cheaper, right? That seems self-evident. But there's a huge chunk of people who are in this gray zone that, if neither fringe is talking to. And the fringes are what make up most chat rooms. You and I have an exception, I think, because we have a mix match of a lot of people that are, certainly on the liberal side of things, but are all over the spectrum of that thought. And that's healthy. So the point I'm trying to make is that in the Hassan world, in the TYT world, there is, I consider it a wolf in sheep's clothing situation. The only reason we're talking about it is because they seem to be on the right side of the issue 60% of the time. When they bring up something like childcare and child tax credit or whatever, it's not that it's bad, it's that it's not far enough. We should have, it should all be paid for, whatever. Okay. As a utopian goal, I completely agree. As a possibility, in a genuine democracy, it isn't. So where do you go? How far can you get? And their war against incremental progress and their belief that establishment is somehow like the evil, it's their version of the deep state. It's their excuse why shit doesn't get done, instead of going, you have not convinced the rest of these voters that this will work and that you mean well. That's the thing holding back most of the biggest social change aspects of that are legislated of the last 5 decades. There's certainly extremist situations where Trump gets a hold of the House, they vote against a woman's right to choose, which is against the general public. But every Democrat voted against it, but they were fucking outnumbered. Why were they outnumbered? Because assholes like Hassan Piker and the anti-establishment crowd chipped away at our majority regularly for 2 fucking decades, and they're not going to stop. Other than that, I have
Well,
no
to think
opinion.
that the establishment hasn't done anything to be chipped away at, because people like fucking Chuck Schumer and everybody else taking the AIPAC money consistently give us the reason and examples to fight back against the people that are supposedly supposed to be working for our best interest, but absolutely have done fucking nil as far as doing that, and don't fucking have any regard whatsoever for listening to the people that they're supposed to be representing and what we want and what we don't want to see happen when you continuously fund fucking Israel with
okay, hold
weapons
on.
and
1 second.
and fucking
I'll stop you
tractors
right
and
there,
shit.
because this is important. Because you use nothing and nil, which are total absolutes, right? Zero. That's your argument.
I
Zero.
did.
Chuck Schumer is a senator from the state of New York. What do you think the constituency of New York is in terms of support for Israel?
I
And
don't give a
genuinely,
shit.
well,
Don't give a shit.
you
Don't give a
do.
fuck. Really couldn't give a shit less what he thinks is the reasoning that he's sending weapons continuously to support a genocide. I don't give a fuck if he thinks he's doing the right thing. I don't give a fuck if he thinks his mother and father support it. I don't give a fuck if he thinks his neighborhood supports it. Fuck him and fuck them for supporting it.
Okay. Well, that's the issue, though. So you're circumventing the idea of
Exactly. That is the issue.
representative democracy.
Yes, in supporting a genocide, yes, because how many people are out there actually telling Chuck Schumer to continuously send weapons and fucking tractors to move people out of their fucking homeland and to murder people and in the West Bank and in Gaza? How many people are consistently now still telling Chuck Schumer to do that? What's the current number? Because the support for Israel has fucking gone through the shitter. Whether it's with the GOP, whether it's with the Democrats as far as a base, or it's the Democratic politicians, it's fallen through the fucking cracks, and for good fucking reason. And it didn't fall fast enough.
Okay, I understand that. I guess the primary question is, where does that end in representative democracy? Where does that end?
With people that will not consistently send that shit, will not consistently take money from the people that have no fucking goals, no intentions to support or that benefit the United States people whatsoever. We've given billions and billions and billions. We've seen fucking thousands of people die. And for what in return? For what? What have we gotten in return for our specific partnership and fucking Chuck Schumer and AIPAC's benefit
I'm not arguing,
to fucking Israel?
Okay, I agree with you that I think support for Israel, especially under Netanyahu and during the last 3.5 years, has dropped through the floor, and that the American people as an electorate have drifted towards, or by and large drifting towards, lowering our support for Israel militarily and not seeing them as the only democracy in the region with gay rights and a non ethno state government, because there are Arabs in the that are in the parliament there and the like, has drifted towards it, being an expansionist imperialist like party that running Israel against the will of the Israeli people and doing this stuff. I don't disagree with you there. The question I have is that in those situations with the nothing and nil and whatever, the public that votes for these things apparently is not 100% there yet. They're drifting that way, but we haven't had an election between the last one and this one where the numbers have cratered this much. I would argue that since the 2024 election and now, the American people's feelings about defensive support of Israel, offensive support of Israel, and certainly because of this war, has made a major change, meaning that their representatives in the government, if they continue to support this or whatever, are diverging themselves from what the public wants. But you look at the drop in support from the last election to now, It's the worst that it's ever been, right? And therefore, the people that are supplying them with those arms and doing all those kind of things are hearing different things from their constituents in theory. But then the Republicans themselves are still in charge of the House, the Senate, and the presidency. And there's no situation where a cut in that funding or whatever that Schumer or any, because we're in the minority. We are in the minority. So that change in how Democrats especially feel about military support of Israel will have zero impact. They have no power, none. And if they did, even if we take the House and the Senate, Trump is still in office, or Vance is still in office because the American people voted him in last time. And we'll put all of our shenanigans, Elon Musk shit aside. The American people voted him in. The representative leader of our country right now was voted in not because he had a wave of people that was bigger than who voted him in 2016, but because a shit ton of our side sat down because they didn't vote. And they didn't vote for a woman who's brown, who wouldn't meet in private with Netanyahu because Genocide Joe. And the idea that Democrats somehow are on the hook for everything Republicans do. And that's the purity test that I'm talking about. And that's the argument that Hassan and TYT makes all the time that made 6 million people, including 100,000 people who pretended that Donald Trump would be better for the Palestinians after posting Trump Tower Gaza and telling Netanyahu that the West Bank is next and that the Palestinians need to be moved to other countries actively, openly. Did they show up at the DNC and after the DNC had already argued that we shouldn't be supporting this and for calling it a genocide or at least ethnic cleansing. That argument was being had at the DNC. Meanwhile, Trump is meeting in private with Netanyahu and none of these motherfuckers showed up. Hassan Piker's entire vitriol during that time was all on the DNC. And what happened? America is engaged in right now our first imperialist attack on a country in decades. I mean, we didn't even want to take Vietnam to have it. But Iran's like, we go in, we keep the oil, basically I'm running it. I run the Strait. I run Venezuela. I'm basically the president of Venezuela. And everybody acts like it's a fuck around. Hassan acts like it's a fuck around and lays it at fucking Schumer's feet. I'm sorry. I find it immoral. I find it,
but
and it undercuts.
None of that changes any of the support or what Chuck Schumer continues to do, right? And what he does and how he doesn't represent what the fucking people of this country want to see happen and want to see done as far as societally and fucking as far as geopolitically.
They didn't as of the last election, and what they currently don't. They do not. That's the problem.
But they're supposed to he's a Democrat, right? He's supposed to represent the Democratic side.
No, he's a senator from
no, I understand that. I understand.
He's still the minority.
Supposed to represent everybody. I understand.
Right, but he's also the minority leader.
Where is it democratic? Where is it democratic to continue supporting this genocide? Where is it democratic to continue its funding from AIPAC? Meanwhile, again, none of it has to benefit the people, whether you're Republican or you're Democratic or you're a Democrat. None of it. None of what he's done there in this specific situation has benefited us. Where was the vote for the war powers? Where was the vote to have people fucking put on record where they stand for this war with Iran? I understand, but the fact that you don't have the power doesn't fucking stop your vocal cords, doesn't stop your voice box, which is why it's not stopping me from calling out the people that are supposed to be representing us on this side, or at least portray themselves as representing us as far as the leadership in this party for doing things that go directly against what the people in this party as leadership, they're the leadership. I understand senator-wise, they represent everybody, but the leadership of this fucking party is not doing what the fucking people want them to do.
Okay. I hear you as far as you want them to be louder.
I don't want it to be that way. I don't want to be sitting here calling out fucking. Believe me, I wish we lived in a utopia, and I make no, I make no qualms about it that the fucking Republicans, the GOP, and Donald Trump are by far and away the biggest enemy. They're not even comparable, not even remotely comparable of the two sides. I fucking understand that, but if you love something, you have to be able to call it out when you see dead babies on a fucking daily basis. When you continue to see that and the funding continue to go for that. Meanwhile, we're fucking being screwed and porked in the ass here in the country generation generation after fucking generation, and we're sending billions and billions of dollars, and the people that are supposed to be leading us right now in 2026 don't fucking recognize that. That's a problem, and I will call that out. That's just what I see. Not to suggest that all of their voting or everything that they voted for was against policy or against Democrats or didn't help, but in this instance, the biggest factors that we're seeing right now are what we're talking about: the genocide going on, the way that people are struggling mightily all over the world, especially here in the United States, the housing crisis, people can't afford fucking health care, right? Like these are the things, even though you don't have the power to affect a change in the government, you should be out there screaming and yelling your fucking head off every single turn for fucking arrest, for impeachment,
but here's
for
my
step
argument.
down, for change.
I get it. No. I get it. But we don't run a country by cardboard sign. We do it by voting. And what happened last time was 6 million people who allegedly believe everything you believe, and I believe, about these conflicts, about what our priorities should be. 6 million of them sat the fuck down and voted with their feet.
And fuck them for doing so. But I don't trust anybody that's supposed to be voting for us that continues to show this fucking delusion. No, I'm talking about the fucking leadership. I have no trust in the person to do the best for us that continues to show this lack of accountability, this lack of fucking living in reality, and continues to fucking do the things that he supports. It's just that simple. You know what I mean? I don't trust that person to continuously go on to vote for the best interest of me, my people, the people that I love, and to see that people can actually have a fucking better life. That's what I'm saying.
Gotcha. Okay. So this is the statement from Schumer from the Senate Democrats. When I talked to Secretary Rubio, I implored him to be straight with Congress and the American people about the objectives of these strikes and what comes next. Iran must never be allowed to attain a nuclear weapon, but the American people do not want another endless and costly war in the Middle East when there are so many problems at home. The administration has not provided Congress and the American people with critical details about the scope and immediacy of the threat. Confronting Iran's malign regional activities, nuclear ambitions, and harsh oppression for the Iranian people demands American strength, resolve, regional coordination, and strategic clarity. Unfortunately, President Trump's fitful cycles of lashing out and risking wider conflict are not a viable strategy. The administration must brief Congress, including an immediate, all senators classified briefing and in public testimony to answer these vital questions. The Senate should quickly return to session and reassert its constitutional duty by passing our resolution to enforce the War Powers Act. My prayers are with our brave American service members. That's from February 28th. That was right at the beginning of it, when it happened. What impact did it have?
Oh, he's got tons of strongly worded letters.
Right. But what other power does he have? You want him to be louder about shit. You want him to talk about. They said on the floor.
The reporting of behind the scenes of them wanting to stop the vote, not wanting to have the War Powers Resolution to put people on the record. Like, you understand, like, it's so fun. Like, he likes that this is going on. In my belief, I think that he likes this because not only can he see that the fucking, the Iranian leadership is going to be fucking eradicated to his hopes, but he also gets to call out Donald Trump for having enacted this on both sides. So he gets to talk out of both sides of his mouth in this regard.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. So, the idea is that he wants this war because of how strategically damaging it is.
I just don't think he's that upset, and he didn't do everything that he possibly could to make sure that it not only, I know he couldn't stop it, but to make sure that everybody's ass got on fucking record before this shit kicked off, to make sure that everybody, just like we did in Iraq, and said, hey, look at where people voted for this. Let's look back. Let's look at the chaos and the destruction that it caused and the millions of fucking Iraqis that died. And let's look back at the senators that actually voted to say, yes, let's send our men and women into this fucking combat zone, right? I mean, there was reporting to suggest from his aides in the background that they were talking about not wanting to set that vote, not wanting that vote to take place. Why would they not want that vote to take place?
I don't know. Well, the vote took place in the Senate on April 15th to pass war powers. Huh? After what?
After that the war had been initiated?
Yeah. I mean,
the whole point is to get people on record before it happens. You know what I mean?
That's you know what I mean? No, he didn't announce.
Again, this is not like a, hey, this is like both sides are the same and both sides are.
It kind of is, though, and I want to address this. No, real quick.
I'm talking about individual fucking people in the leadership of this fucking party.
But did Trump go to? Sorry, did Trump? Am I unaware of Trump going to Congress and asking them for permission to attack Iran? Was there a notification of the attack? That
no. What does that have to do with it, though?
Well, why they had the War Powers Resolution vote after it started?
Right, but they could have called it beforehand, right? When this was all being talked about and being discussed, right? I mean, there was obviously talk behind the scenes of what the fuck was going to take place. I mean, there was obviously planning going on to some extent. The Republicans,
Right,
I
but
know
that would have been the
to a
Republicans
large
calling
extent,
it.
the Democrats were getting caught. I know, but I mean, there's no whispering. We knew fucking Eric Swalwell was engaged in sexual assault for all these years. All the rumors were spent on Capitol Hill. We didn't know that Donald Trump was going to fucking send bombs into Iran all of a sudden. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Okay, all prognostication aside, and whether we could, psychically, strategically, or actually understand what the fuck Donald Trump's plan is in any of these situations, that aside, once it happened, there was a push to get a war resolution vote that happened, and Republicans blocked a fourth attempt at it to pass it. They did it Democrats tried to pass or bring to the floor a war powers resolution in the Senate 4 times before April 15th. Republicans blocked it. Chuck Schumer didn't block it. Chuck Schumer voted for it all 4 times. Republicans voted against it. 47-52
right,
was
but
the
what I'm
ultimate
talking
final
about, that
vote.
was after the initial reporting and after the war had already been initiated. That's what I'm saying.
Right, but you can't vote
That's
for,
what I'm
again,
saying.
the minority. Okay,
But this
the
is before
minority's not
anybody
gonna
had voted on it. There was already people in the background talking about how they don't want this to happen before anybody voted on it. It wasn't about the votes. It was before anything had taken place.
Okay, I'm not.
It wasn't about
all
the
right.
votes or
I'm
what
just
they
not
thought was going to happen.
Sure. No, I'm glad we're having this conversation because I'm not sure what what chance of coming to the floor in a Republican-controlled Senate a bill to curtail Trump's war powers before he's launched the attack.
I know, but that shouldn't stop us demanding that. That's what I mean. I understand the
Well, a bunch
limitations
of
of
people
power.
came to
I
the
really
floor.
do. I understand the
No,
limitations of power that we have in government, but that should not stop you for demanding, for getting out, for fucking even stopping the way that the fucking government functions, to demand that some of this shit happens the way that it's supposed to happen. Demand that Donald Trump go to Congress like he was supposed to go to Congress before the war. Like, we got to stop doing this, like playing political games like it's normal times, right? Again,
I don't think
same
they
way that
are.
we can't rationalize anything that Donald Trump does because it's fucking impossible with a guy so erratic. Like, you have to think outside the box at this
Understood.
point. You know
But
what I mean?
I think there's like 20, to my count, there's like 20 senators that gave big speeches on the floor, specifically calling for a war powers resolution, for the Pete Hegseth and everybody to come down and justify this, for the limitations set in the War Powers Act to be played out. Like, all of them have done this. Like 20 Democratic senators, including Schumer.
20's not all of them. 20's not all of them.
But these are the strategic leadership. They do that. They're speaking on behalf of other people. It's not again. I get it, but it's not because the other ones around them. They're speaking on behalf of other Democrats in there because they all voted that way. The point I'm trying to make is
I got you.
right. What's happening in this situation is it does sound like a 2 pair of pants situation. It does sound like a deep state conversation that somehow the inner workings of the Democratic Party were somehow like rubbing their hands together and hoping that Trump would declare war on Iran so he would handle this problem we don't want to have to handle. And those people are strategically in the leadership, and that they are specifically doing things like stopping votes on the War Powers Act, which they are not, because again, we had 4, and then the Republicans have just either fucked off or shut down the House or the Senate and left. So there wouldn't be another one, and it would have turned out the same way. The same thing with like happened in the House.
I just don't think it's a stretch to suggest that people that take millions and millions of dollars from the Israel lobby or AIPAC directly would maybe have some sort of attachment to the fucking goals and beliefs of Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel at this moment in time. I just don't think that's a stretch, regardless of what side of the fucking aisle that they're on, regardless of what statements they've come out and said or what strongly worded letters they've said. Like, clearly we know a lot of these people are two-faced. Not all of them, but a lot of these people are fucking two-faced. We've heard a lot of the reporting of people that are fighting out in the fucking public, and next thing you know, they're in the next to the stall with the politician they were just screaming and yelling at, talking about where they're going to go get a beer. You know what I mean? Gotcha. So it's like, I understand there's a lot of gamery, obviously, that takes place in this, and I'm not saying nothing has been done. Maybe I'm going too above and beyond.
I'm a very Libra about that stuff. It's all right. I'm very Libra about
no, and right, hand up accountability. I have no problem saying when I'm wrong at any turn, right? These are just my beliefs, and I just think a lot more in different
Whoops.
different ways of doing things need to be thought about in this political time. Again, that is not normal, that nobody recognizes as normal. People that have been involved in politics for generations continue to say how unusual and chaotic and unpredictable this political or geopolitical time is because of Donald Trump, because of the sycophancy of the GOP. I just think now we got to start thinking a little bit more outside the box. We need to start recognizing people that, again, may have done great things in the past, may have done great things for their community in the past, but maybe right now, at this existential moment in time, right now, aren't the best possible person for the leadership. And maybe we should be thinking about people that would have more down to earth beliefs, or maybe I'm not speaking that really, but would listen to the people in this country a lot more broadly and understand than somebody that's got millions of dollars in the bank, is fucking 80 something years old. You know what I mean? It's just, again, we talk about the need for youth in politics, or the need to get people that aren't all 80, 90 years old out of politics, and it's for a reason, because people in this country don't feel like they're being listened to. They don't feel like they understand the plight that they're going through, whether it's going to the grocery store or
and Nick
babysitting.
Fuentes
A lot
is
of
young,
these people
and
now,
Candace Owens is young,
don't think twice.
And Nick Fuentes is young, and so are all of his followers. Candace Owens is young, and so is all of her viewers. Owen Stroyer, or whatever his name is, from Alex's show, is a young dude. Like, the idea that youth is a clean sweeping broom is
obviously there's a lot more that goes into it than just the fucking date of birth on your fucking license, but
right. And wisdom works in some ways. There are people, by the way, who receive more in AIPAC funding than, say, Ted Cruz, but vote with them on a less often, right? If you compare how much money they're getting and how much they, per their election, usually it's because the choice between them and another person is, so enormous or egregious that's where they push, or it's a rich district and that's just what the costs of that area are. But like Ted Cruz, I think you could argue, has carried more water for Israel and AIPAC right to Donald Trump, and bypassed the House and the Senate in terms of votes, committees. None of it fucking mattered, because even though they were having committee resolutions or trying to bring stuff to the floor, and again, we're in the minority. And there's at a certain point, like, I'm just dealing with the realism that we ended up in the minority through two routes. And the biggest one seems to be last time, that 6 million people thought last year that Donald Trump would be better for Palestine, Gaza, and the Middle East than Harris. And they weren't Republicans. They were people who had previously voted Democratic, who were, by the way, benefiting from the rural broadband that Biden put in place, from the lead pipes that he's removing from our water system, like all the fucking nothing that Democrats do every time, like supporting SNAP and fucking the Farm Bill and all the normal shit, lowering the deficit, all the things that Democrats never do, but always do. Those people made a choice. And why did they make that choice? Was it because they weighed the material reality of what Democrats were delivering versus what they promised? Was it because they were like, Democrats are more beholden to AIPAC, therefore, if I vote for Donald Trump, who's a rich fuck from Mar-a-Lago with, never mind the fact that his two only friends in life were dead pedophiles who happened to be Jewish, and one of them they even themselves think worked for fucking Mossad. How do you get there? How do you get from these guys aren't doing enough to the fucking bulldozer that Donald Trump is by 6 million votes in every swing state? How do you get there?
Well, there's a whole host of reasons people are that dumb and ignorant.
I'm
right there with you and calling those fucking idiots out.
No. There's too much media around for them to be dumb or ignorant. They made a choice. They made an active choice.
A dumb choice. It would be sufficient to say they made a dumb choice, right?
No, I think they were insane. I don't think it's dumb.
Okay. Well,
dumb
is that just not a higher progressive of dumb?
No. What I mean? Dumb is lack of information. Stupid is you have the information and you act anyways. Like why all rednecks, their last words are "watch this." That's stupid, not dumb.
I don't think anybody's going to keel over from surprise if I say it was a dumb move. If I said that, I don't think people are going to fall over in their seats.
I agree,
and say, well, that's not the right word to use.
But I don't think it gives them. I don't think it gives enough credit. I think it was fucking evil, and I think a lot of them pretended to be pro-Palestinian and pro-peace and all this horse shit. And in reality, they didn't give a rat fuck. They were just carrying
Right,
out
and there was
some
also
sort
a lot of fucking morons that were drawn out to vote because of Donald Trump, right? There was a lot of idiots that never voted to begin with that were drawn out to vote,
not
and
by
they
the
either
numbers
fucking
in
made
2016, not by the same numbers in 2016. These were a lot of return people. If we'd have had 1-to-1 with the voters that we had in, and those new voters, both sides, and they'd all come out to vote, Harris would have won.
Yeah, they fucked us. Believe I'm right there with you. Right there. I'm just saying there's
They
probably a
nothing.
whole host of reasons as to
They
why fucking
nothing.
people made the
We
choice that they
fucked us.
did.
We fucked us. They
No,
weren't
I didn't fuck anybody.
well, that's not what I heard. No, what I'm saying is here's the thing. You got, 20,000 plus and a lot more viewers than subscribers. That's how shit works. I got my 90,000 here and 100,000 on, Insta and other shit like that. But we're still small potatoes in this big media stream. And so the direction of people believing either what they wanted to believe or actively participating in knowing they were full of shit and just being vengeful and shitty was enough to sway the election Donald Trump's way, either enough for him to steal it or enough for him to get it. And that means that in a representative democracy, a very significant number of people on our side were listening to the Hassans and the TYTs of the world and said, fuck it and fuck her. Knowing full well that it would have a meaningful statistical, disadvantage for Democrats, giving him the House, the Senate, and the presidency.
I forget now who he said he voted for. I'm not sure if he said he voted for Kamala or not, to tell you the truth, at this point in time.
Well, again, there's a strategic.
Again, I just think there's a lot that we haven't heard, right? I think there's a lot that we have heard from the people that are going against.
If you're not going to give,
hold on, big clips that everybody can pull up.
Wait. You got official. You got. I know. I love you, brother, but you give official statements from members of the Democratic Party, and behind the scenes they must be having secretive conversations to keep fucking things, but. Hassan, makes excuses for saying, basically being Ali G in his early days, just like Cenk with his fucking camel toe, spot the camel toe thing, and him saying that if there's grass on the field, let's play. If she, old enough to bleed, old enough to breed shit, haunting him from his old days. That's not what I'm even talking about. I'm talking about his specific, strategic, regular material attacks on Democrats being the villain even when they're out of power. And then when they do things like the rescue package, like the CHIPS and Science Act, like trying to get student loans taken away, like debt eliminated, and an infrastructure act which has more climate change, pro climate change, just resiliency stuff for fucking coastlines and renewables and stuff in it than at any time in history, and allowing that to be all swept away because they don't like the fact that Chuck Schumer's Jewish and therefore he must be more favorable to Israel than New York wants him to be. And that because of leadership, because of seniority, which is how, many of these things work. And even though we're in the minority, it's got to be his fault that we're in this and not the people who actually made the votes and the people who actually stayed home. I am never going to stop vote shaming these motherfuckers. And anybody who does the two pair of pants, two legs in the same pair of pants shit, the lesser of two evils thing, is directly responsible for the 6 million sit downs last time. That's what it does. That's the impact.
I just don't know if any critiquing or any criticizing is
you
is
can criticize,
to,
but it's got to be based in reality.
Isn't.
It's got to be based on the reality of what they actually have the ability to carry out, right? Because otherwise, you're just asking for us to go down swinging, loud, like mouthpieces yelling in the fucking dark. Unless we have the power to actually implement these changes, he makes the statement like the one I read to you, which is materially pretty much what everybody's asking for, at least in a, from a leadership standpoint. It will be too middle of the road for some people in the beginning, but ultimately calls for a war powers resolution, calls for them to come down and do all these things. But Democrats don't have the power to do that. Republicans do. And why don't we have the power?
Because it's hard to believe that anybody that wrote that would then go ahead and vote to send more weapons and fucking tractors and shit to a thing that he disagrees with. How does that make any sense?
All right.
How does that make sense?
Which
I
vote are we
overwhelmingly
talking about?
disagree with all of this.
Whoa.
Chuck Schumer's vote.
I know that. In what?
Chuck Schumer's vote against fucking
bill?
Against Bernie Sanders' resolution the other day. That would have stopped the aid to going, would have stopped the fucking $400 million, $490 million from going to Israel, and another fucking aid and weapons package that would included tractors and fucking bulldozers and shit to fucking, to eliminate people from the fucking West Bank. I mean, what the fuck are we talking about here? How can you on one side of your mouth say, I don't agree in any way with this war and what it's perpetrated, what it's done to people, but also let me sign off on this fucking aid package to go towards the continued bombing and genocide of the people. That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. So that's the fact that people can speak out of both sides of their mouth, I think needs to be called out. Am I saying that they're just as bad? Absolutely not. Of course not. Absolutely fucking not. But the fact that we do have this to contend with is a fucking problem and should be like, okay, where do you really stand then? Because you say on one strongly worded letter you don't like what's happening, and then in the next fucking vote, you're with these other 7 or 8 Democrats voting for this shit to continue. Like I don't know.
So on Wednesday, 40 senators backed a resolution brought by Sanders that would have prevented the sale of $295 million in bulldozers, and 36 members voted for a second resolution that would have halted $151.8 million in sale of 12,000 1,000-pound bombs to Israel's military. So there were 2 separate votes in that regard. Last April, only 15% of the caucus's 47 members supported the measures, but in July, 27 members backed another batch of resolutions.
And Schumer didn't even listen to his own caucus. The multiplications, the people that went up not supporting this had almost doubled, right? But Chuck Schumer didn't seem to listen to the coalition, didn't seem to listen to the people that have actively changed their minds in this stance from where they were just a short period of time ago. And then he went on to do this. So again, how do you tell me that you're against this war? You don't like what's going on. You don't support what Israel's doing. Yet continue to send them fucking billions and the equipment necessary to keep pushing people off their homelands.
Okay, so I'm with you on his particular vote.
That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to draw more people into this. I'm not trying to make this a bigger, these are the examples that I'm seeing. The reports from behind the scenes from their own aides, the voting themselves, what they're doing just doesn't line up with the other things that they're saying. So it makes it hard for me to trust them. That's all.
Okay, then don't vote for him for Senate if you live in New York ultimately. And if there's a vote that comes up for another, minority leader, I'm completely fine with supporting that and suggesting somebody else. Adam Schiff would be a good example. He voted for these.
And that's why I love you.
There you go.
We always seem to come together at some point.
That's right. So, but the question is that where I find fault with it, and this is where it ventures into Hassan territory, is nil, nothing, no. When the majority of Democrats in the last round, even though they didn't last year, this round voted to get those resolutions to the floor, even though they don't have the power to do it. These are just politically dick wagging. They don't actually have any material benefit. Bernie Sanders his putting that forward is not going anywhere. It's not. It's dead because Republicans are never going to vote for it, and they didn't. Anyways, even with a marginal number of Democrats voting for one or the other.
It was even fucking dumber for Chuck Schumer to fucking show his hand then. It was even fucking stupider for him to vote for that.
Well, right.
Because he could have slipped under the fucking radar, voted with it, knowing it wouldn't pass.
Here's Adam Schiff's thing. Being a stalwart of Israel, however, does not mean agreeing with all decisions of the Israeli government or Netanyahu. Just like being a patriot of the United States does not require unquestioning agreement at the policies of Donald Trump and his administration, said Adam Schiff and Alex Padilla in a joint statement after voting in favor of the resolutions. Both had previously voted against the measure last year. So that's where the shift is going. That's where I'm saying the public is shifting. I think the electorate is moving as well. Speaking before the vote, Sanders described the effort as an opportunity for Congress to stand up to the American-Israeli Public Affairs Committee, and which AIPAC specifically. Let us be clear. Given the horrific and illegal behavior of the Netanyahu government over the last 3 years, the people have had enough. Support for Israel in this country has plummeted, citing a Pew Research survey, just like I did. finding that 80% of Democrats and 41% of Republicans view the country negatively. Maybe, just maybe, the Senate should start listening to their constituents and not just the wealthy individuals who fund AIPAC, and that is what today's vote is all about. I can't find anything on Schumer's reasoning for voting for it, or that he voted for it in this, but they described the sale of 1,000-pound bombs as, being egregious, which I
same
completely agree with.
jackasses that vote for the fucking shit every single time.
Let's see if I can get if I can find Netanyahu's, or I mean, let's effort to block you. There you go.
Freudian slip there, Chief.
Yeah, really. Thanks. No, I was reading what was on the screen there because he,
No, and listen, I will, while you're looking that up, I will rightly put my hand up accountability a lot of the times that my passion, my aggression, maybe the language that I'm using doesn't hit correctly. I'm not the most articulate. I can barely say the fucking word. So, you know what I mean? So it's like,
I love your accent.
I'm just saying, I'm not, I understand that I have ample shortcomings, you know what I mean? So I'm not always right.
Let's see. Yeah. So, let's see. Let's see. The no votes were Schumer, Gillibrand, Blumenthal, Fetterman, Coons, Rosen, and Cortez Masto.
It's always good. It's always good to see the leadership on the same list with Fetterman. That's always what you want to see nowadays.
Right. I'm trying to find if he made a statement about why, but it says Schumer was one of just 7 Democrats who voted against at least one of Sanders' resolutions, while roughly 36 of 40 Democrats voted to block the sales, an unusually high level of inter-party support for conditioning arms to Israel. I was trying to find if he made a statement on why, just curious, not out of defense, but genuinely why the reasoning of it was. And again, not that this matters, but let's see.
Totally understand.
Yeah, because it's dead. Okay, coverage notes that Schumer, longtime pro-Israel Democrat, voted with Republicans and a small group of Democrats who opposed Sanders' resolutions despite a majority of his own caucus backing them. Reports from is consistent with his historic alignment with AIPAC's oppositions, and his argument in past speeches, the U.S. should maintain strong military support while urging it towards restraint. Progressive groups like Rokana publicly blasted him for this. New York-based activists and organizations such as Jewish Voice for Peace Action say Schumer and Gillibrand are betraying their constituents by opposing the resolutions, which again, they wouldn't have to have a name Jewish Voice for Peace Action if they weren't a minority outreach group within a minority outreach group. But whatever. Let's see. Yeah. So again, I'm with you about it, like him voting about this. But again, the bulldozers and the military stuff of this about an impotent bill that's not going somewhere. I don't know that. Again, don't care about his reasoning. Ultimately, though, what do you think the chances are that if a similar bill came to the floor or came through committee or somebody presented it, and we had 60 Democrats, enough to pass it with just Democratic votes, even if Schumer voted against it? What do you think the chances of it would pass? Because
I don't think he'd have any choice in the matter at that point in time, right? I mean, he'd pretty much be going against his entire fucking but what's to say that he'd want to? You know what I mean? Like, I don't want somebody that's going to be out there and saying, well, only because the number of people that are against me, I'm actually going to sign on to this. Where if I had the opportunity not to sign on to this,
I don't live in New York,
weren't in my favor,
that's not my point. That's not my point at all. But you and I both don't live in New York. We can't vote him out if we wanted to. But even if he was in leadership position like he is now as the minority leader, if we had 60 votes and he was the majority leader, the bill would still come to the floor. There's enough votes for it to get it to come to the floor, right? And my guess would be there'd be enough Democrats to pass it by these numbers, especially now, if not more going forward. If anything, the pressure would be towards him to agree with it, or they'd have to like super narrow it to like minimal arms and just stuff for the Golden Dome, for example. There'd be a bill put to the floor to like increase funding, but it can only go to the Golden Dome stuff to protect them from incoming missiles, defensive weapons only. Like we had with Ukraine for a long time, right? When Obama was just giving them pillows and blankets because we didn't trust the leadership. That was the difference, right? That is the difference. But right now, this is an impotent vote anyways, and this doesn't excuse Schumer's, but they can yell about this. Sanders can bring these to the floor every half hour for the next 2 fucking years. And unless we take the
And
House
they
and the
should.
Senate, and unless we take the House, the Senate, and the presidency, it won't get signed. And there won't be enough votes.
Yeah, and we should fucking choke them to death with all of the fucking policies and procedures that we're putting into play that we could pull out of the woodwork right now that we should be putting into play. Whether it's the fucking War Powers Resolution of '73 and making people aware of what's going on with that and the power of Congress that they're supposed to obtain, whatever it is.
Right, there were 4 votes on it before they left. And Democrats voted for it every time.
I mean, as far as the president's power, like his 60 days to utilize the military without actually, like, he has 48 hours to notify Congress. He has 30 days,
but
60 days to
the
utilize
House has
it,
to be
and
brought to
days.
the floor. I know, but the House has to be brought to the floor.
Doesn't mean that people should know about it, though. You know what I mean? People should understand the rules and the laws that are being broken.
That sounds like
whether
an
or not
argument
we have
with the
the ability or the police officers on the fucking ground to change it. I mean, we should still be letting everybody know, hey, look at fucking what's going on here. These are the powers that are being broken. These are the rules, the procedures, whatever, all of them, everything that's being broken. We should be fucking choking the shit out of this government with all of the things that we could be out there saying as far as corruption, incompetence, war crimes, fucking shooting people in broad daylight in the fucking streets. I mean, whatever laws, everything, fucking choke them to death with it.
That's the thing. Then watch CPAC, because Democrats are doing it all the time. They're just doing it in 5-minute increments in every fucking committee, because that's all we get. I mean, and again, you want to look at how impotent the circumstance is against the administration, and the fact that the House and the Senate are both run by people who will shut the fucker down rather than let stuff move forward, period. Look at the guy, the Republican who's bitching about the budget. Have you seen that guy who comes to the floor every couple of weeks to go, we're fucking doomed? And he's the Republican budgetary.
Teleported?
Yeah. It's the guy who does the budgetary warnings. That guy comes out with his fucking paper and he's like, this is where we are. We're fucking dead. He's the one fiscal conservative left over from the fucking Freedom Caucasians that will come out and say shit. He's always in a flop sweat like Hank Paulson in 2008, right? He's always like, it's like he shits his pants the entire time he's there. They're in the minority and they don't listen. I mean, they're in the majority and they don't listen to that motherfucker. And that was what they ran on. We're going to cut the deficit. Your prices are going to go down. Everything's going to be cheaper and prettier and have a gold fucking leafing on it. They don't listen to him.
Right. No, you're right. You're right. I got you.
So the arguing, like bitching more strategically is not it's not a tactic. It's not a functional tactic. It's good for us and what we're doing because we're not elected. Right? And there are legal limitations. The only thing that will ever change any of this is a blue wave of the Democrats that can get elected in the districts that you and I don't live in, that are not fucking AOC blue. Unless we have the numbers, this shit's not going to change. And it's just going to get worse. Because even on the margin, if Democrats are seen as even on the margin, being weak because our constituency will pack up their shit and go home because if we don't get everything, nobody gets anything, which is the TYT moniker. Republicans aren't afraid of Democrats because of that, because they know cyclically we're easy to back down. And again,
I've never subscribed to this all or nothing aspect of governance either. Like, as much as I want to see a substantial change, I honestly, I voted for Kamala. I was right there calling for, the smart choice to be made, the logical choice to be made. Like, I by no means subscribe to, this both sides fallacy or this bullshit. And I'm not, I'm not caught up in, at some point not voting because of, because of the disagreements that I have or the critiques that I have, not even remotely close, you know what I mean? So I just want to make that very, very clear for anybody that was listening to the conversation. It's not, I just, I'm passionate about the things that I'm passionate about. I do believe if you love something like I love this country, then you should be readily, able, ready, and willing to critique it, to criticize it, to call it out. Right. I don't care if that's blue, red. I don't care if you're Chinese. I don't care if you're black, purple, blue. I don't care if you got a large bank account, a small bank account. I don't care if you're Jewish. I don't care if you're Christian. I mean, that's just how I feel. I was taught to stand up for what I believe, call it out, and speak out. And even if you don't have the power to win that fight, you better fucking stand up for yourself and at least put up a good fucking showing.
Right. I think the definition of good fucking showing is part of the issue, depending on what state you're in and how to get elected in those states, and that's always going to be a rub. Insofar as we know, from what I could find, Hassan sang a song, "I'm going to vote for Donald Trump," during his voting live stream on election day the entire time, and most people believe he voted for Claudia de la Cruz. So this is exactly the fucking thing I'm talking about.
And again, like I said, I'm not sitting here to say that there's absolutely nothing that we could critique, call him out for, yell and scream at, get in a hot debate over. I found it very ridiculous that we were trying to ix or nix his entire community or the people that watch him, and trying to, again, like a lot of the shows, like I said before, it's not about the conversation between the two people. It's about the people in the chat. Right. There's always somebody in the chat a lot of the time that didn't know something that we were talking about. And maybe I didn't change your mind. You didn't change my mind. But somebody in the chat was like, oh, shit, I never fucking thought of it that way. Or holy shit, I didn't know that fucking took place. Or I didn't know that type of shit happened that way or something like that. So, again, it's not it's just it's the fact that we're so willing to say, OK, we're not going to do that. He's worse than Alex Jones, or he's worse than this person. He's worse than that. And we shouldn't go on and try to, again, call him out for his bullshit, call him out for the shit that you disagree with, call him out for what he voted for, call him out for the way that he speaks to his audience, call him out for whatever the fuck you want. But go on there and try to speak to the audience that does watch him by the fucking tens of thousands, and try to utilize that platform. And again, not everybody has to. It shouldn't be like a requirement, but I just don't think it should be like a blackballed thing. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be like something that you're fucking excommunicated if you do it, type of thing. You know what I
mean? Like Newsom for bringing on Steve Bannon on his show.
He's not excommunicated. I'm calling his shit out the same way that I'm calling him out for fucking walking his statements back on how much of a genocide is going on with Gaza and Palestine. The same thing that in his little fucking, his recent interview that he had with his fucking some schmuck in a restaurant, he decided to fucking walk that back and tiptoe around that again. So no, I'm not ostracizing him, not excommunicating him. Would I vote for him? No. But again, I'm calling him out for the shit that I think he should be called out for.
So if he's the nominee for the Democratic Party, you're not going to vote for him?
I didn't say that. I said I'll hold my nose. You just said you wouldn't vote for the fucking situation.
No. You just said you wouldn't vote for him.
All right. I wouldn't. Okay, my mistake. I wouldn't fucking choose to vote for him. Okay, I wouldn't happily vote for somebody in that position. No. But would I, in the same position that I voted for Kamala Harris, obviously knowing that it was the way better of two choices, even that I had some critiques, some things to go against the Biden administration that I didn't agree with? Absolutely. I mean, I'd do the same thing again. I'm not going to put ourselves, I'm not going to not vote. I'm not going to put ourselves in a worse position because I have some problems or critiques with some of these fucking candidates. That's not the person that I am. You know what I mean?
The key. That's the key reason why you and I can have this conversation, and I love you and appreciate you and your passion and your care about these things. And we can go back and forth on the details of these things and understand that ethically, morally, underneath, we're both trying to get to the same place, which I think is the heart of democracy. And I do not extend that same belief. I cannot suspend my disbelief when it comes to Hassan or other groups who have strategically driven third-party voting up, have cried establishment when Bernie, who was an independent, ran as a Democrat and then got out and then went back to being an independent and then ran again as a Democrat, basically using the Democratic Party as a super PAC while claiming he didn't have a super PAC, which is exactly what the DNC is. It is the superest of PACuses. And so right. And
I think you're right. I think to a large degree, you're 100% right that a lot of that angst and like animosity does stem from that particular situation. So absolutely, I grant you that.
Which was horseshit, by the way. Which
nail
was
on the head.
All horseshit. Like the idea that it was stolen from Bernie and all this, it was just nonsense. The man had a 30% ceiling. The only thing that was harder to beat was the glass ceiling on a female president. And Hillary at least managed to get us over that in the popular vote, which is an amazing jump. But still, the reality is, though, is that Sanders claimed to not have a super PAC while using the DNC, its debate funding. It's all the news cycle about it as a super PAC. That's what he did. And look, if you're going to piggyback, that's fine. But the minute he went back to being an independent afterwards and then tried to do it again, like that's why he didn't get the votes of the people in the primaries. It wasn't because they were all pro-Hillary and war neocon people, which is was a Trump fucking talking point that Russia was pushing around because they knew she wouldn't support their attack on Ukraine the way Trump would. So they wanted to saddle her with that because they knew, there was a ceiling on what Bernie could do, but they could use that as a weapon against her. That's what it was. Hillary Clinton wasn't going to fucking invade Russia. She wasn't going to, and she or Harris wouldn't have invaded fucking Iran. And the limitations they would have put on the Israeli government in their position as president would have been, night and day. Clearly, from where
and I have no empathy, compassion, or sympathy for people that obviously didn't see the fucking the writing on the wall and what was going to come from letting Donald Trump get back into
the idea
to second.
And that's where I get away from being dumb. I don't think it's dumb, and I don't think it's stupid. I think it's insane, and in a bunch of cases evil. Because I think they were like,
a lot of people don't care though. A lot of people, it's just fucking. It's like it's the cool thing to do to go against the the grain, right? I mean, it's just a lot of people. It's fucking. I think we're giving them not all of them, obviously, to a large extent. I think you're spot on, but a lot of these fucking idiots, they didn't give a fuck to begin with. You know what I mean? They didn't fucking care about who they voted for the last time, if they did vote, or who they voted for this time. They just they voted for fucking Trump because they liked that it was going against the grain and everybody hated him. And then again, they voted for you know what I mean? It's just like a lot of them didn't give a fuck, and they're assholes for it. And again, not excusing it by any stretch, man. They're just, you know what I mean? It's just there's fucking
and
idiots
I would argue, don't feed that wolf when it's at the table, which is give it more reason to think it's all fucking nobody cares. They're the same anyways. There's no difference because there clearly fucking is. The idea that Harris would have done any of this tariff bullshit, that she would have done the Iran bombing in the war, it's fucking insane. Right? At a certain point, that's not dumb or ignorant. It's malicious or crazy. These are your two options. And I just don't buy it otherwise. And anybody who's still fucking coin flipping like TYT and Hassan and a bunch of these other assholes are, and Dave Smith, they're all fucking coin flipping again. Like, what's really the difference? And that goes back to that whole point I was making where whenever it's fucking, when a Democrat is in the White House, Obama shoved the ACA down our throat. Went through House, went through the Senate, voted, went back and forth, had good stuff stripped out of it and shit put in because that's how it works. That's what you have to deal with. And what did the Republicans say? Obama shoved this down our throats, right? Then Trump gets in, doesn't consult Congress, doesn't consult the Senate, and does something totally fucking illegal on his own based on his own, I had a feeling in my bones bullshit. And suddenly, what's their complaint? The fucking federal government, man, is spending all our money on war and doing stuff. Like, the fuck are you talking about?
I know, but that's almost expecting some sort of consistent through line in these people's rhetoric, policies, statements, propaganda. You know what I mean? There never was any to begin with.
I agree. You know what I mean? But I don't want to be guilty.
That ran out really fucking quick.
I refuse to be guilty of it because of the expediency of the fact that we were drawn onto a war footing by how Donald Trump defines the argument. Because that's what's happening.
No, and again, like I said, there was never a moment in time where it was not clear to me the better choice or how dangerous the position we would be in if, in fact, Donald Trump did get back into a second term. And again, it's just there's no. There's no justification, no matter what rhetoric or terms or phrases that we use for any of that bullshit whatsoever right now. And again, that's just exactly why I'm unwilling to let people rehab the images of Alex Jones, Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Like I will use their rhetoric against their own side because it's politically expedient for me to do so. But I will also reiterate their voting records, what they still believe, their unwillingness to a large extent still call out Trump for exactly how much he's responsible for. Like Alex Jones does this tiptoeing, even though he called MAGA dead cult. He's also still going to go on and say how consequential Trump was and how much he's not ashamed of voting for him. Like he's trying to do that like equivocation while also calling it dead, also trying to hold on to whatever subset of his audience that he doesn't want to lose because he likes to continue to sell them dick pills and shit.
Right. Yeah. So they're lined with lead and heavy metals and the kind of stuff that makes your dick stop working. Which again, to maggots everywhere, go over to that site and buy them by the fucking truckload and guzzle them, you dipshits.
They help you vote better.
Yeah. Right. They do.
Each pill is one more vote cast.
I appreciate you, and I'm glad we got into this conversation. I think it's a beautiful thing, and I appreciate you a lot on every front. And I'm glad we can have these conversations. And I take this shit, as do you, very seriously. I'm not arguing this flippantly or as a pissing contest. These are genuine concerns that I have because I think the result of the third party voting and the kind of anti-establishment shit that we ran into got us exactly where we are. And there's got to be a better way. And maybe it's in how we converse about it. Maybe it's how people figure out a new way, use our big boy words, to talk about this in a way that solves the problems, the internal critiques on a different scale than acting like there's a false equivalency. And that's the hardest thing, I think, for people to linguistically do most of the time, because maybe your audience won't think you care enough about something, or you're afraid that they're afraid you're going soft on an idea or something like that. When in reality, you're just like, no, there's a difference in this circumstance, and we've got to be able to deal with it. We've got to recognize it.
And I think this is a great example of, I hate to use the cliche, but of a big tent. You know what I mean? We're going to have lots of people inside of our tent that are going to want to go at things a different way, that have, grew up differently. My upbringing was, I'm sure, different than the Kentucky upbringing of Hal's, being from New England and stuff. So, you know what I mean? We're all a product of our environment. The people that we grew up with, our friends, our family, doesn't mean that, not all of them is necessary. I always bring it back to like the sports aspect, where, a good sports team has somebody that is good at their position to do anything. Like, you need the running back that's typically, a little bit faster, a little bit stockier. You need the safety who's typically a little taller or skinnier. You know what I mean? Like, you need the quarterback who's 6'7" and can fucking throw a rocket. Like, you need all these people in here to make sure that, you can utilize and have all these things covered. And these conversations are I think, very beneficial. I learn a lot every time that I speak to you. I learn that, to maybe tone it down in a few places every now and again, which is good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I need to do the whole back it down, but I do think these conversations are beneficial. I do enjoy having them with you as much as
emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, self-righteously. I want what you want to accomplish. I just recognize that you and I have a tendency to, because we all have to recognize, I think, especially if we're online or we're even on Shitter or Blue Sky or wherever people are, is that you're always dealing with a subset of a subset of a subset of people in your group, no matter what. And so the illusion that conversation will reach the people who aren't in the group and bring them in, because ultimately the goal has to be to have all the things that we're trying to accomplish in reality. I have, the idea is that, I'm going to let you go, but we dragged on for another hour, and I so greatly appreciate it. But I had a joke back in the day.
This happens all the time for us, I feel like.
No, it's good though. It's good because we have a lot to talk about when I missed you. But I've had a couple of, specifically I had a joke back in the day about the date rape drug when it was first in the news, like roofie and that kind of stuff. And I was doing a bit about this, and I had written it in a way that I thought it was abundantly clear that I'm against it, and that the joke is the absurdity of the name of calling it that way to solve. It's just the rape drug, because once the person's unconscious, date's over, right. And it seems abundantly clear to me, but I had the punchline at the end where it should be most of the time, set up punchline, and against the audience kept thinking I was in support of it because of the way I was phrasing it. So I literally had to move the punchline to the top, basically do a one-liner, and then all the explanations got other laughs because they knew the premise a little stronger. Yeah. But it wasn't the joke that changed. The premise of the joke, my self-righteous outrage at the concept of people even doing this, much less calling it the date rape drug, which is just fucking gross. Again, it was never a date to start with if that person planned on raping you, so fuck off. So like all those points, right? Which I feel very passionately about.
If they didn't make it to the ending credits of the movie, you can't call it a date.
Yeah, I'm not, and again, the joke was about, if you're like dating somebody in a coma, it's like, it's not really a date, is it? And why am I paying for dinner if they've got their head in the soup? So like rando jokes in it like that, pointing to how fucking absurd it is was the point. But the goal was important, but the audience mattered more than my care about how it had to be phrased for me to feel right about it. Didn't deliver the message to the audience the way their ears were set to hear it, because they hadn't put as much consideration in. They didn't know the bit was coming. They didn't know it was, setting up towards this idea. I'm responsible for making sure they get it. They get the joke beforehand. And the same thing I think is true of how we speak about these things politically, that it's, and it's got to be more than just kind of like the not all language that racists use about black people on the right, which you hear all the time as a tap and get out. It's got to be based on reality. And I think Democrats are, one of our biggest problems right now is that we haven't beat our chest about the shit we do right. That you're talking about them being louder about it. I completely agree, especially when it comes to programs we've already passed and the 4 war powers resolution votes that came up that apparently was news. So
I just think if we have the lack of power, we should at least have the pride in wanting to be that opposition. You know what I mean? We should have that pride in the fact that we are on the right side of history, that we are recognizing war crimes. We are recognizing an illegal, unconstitutional war that is completely destabilizing an entire region and causing mass hurt and pain on untold number of thousands of people in any region of the fucking planet right now. Like, I just, you know what I mean? And a lot stems from frustration. I do I'll recognize that, absolutely. But it's just, I don't feel like, again, I don't think that the lack of power should have you like it shouldn't wrap like there's no hands wrapped around your vocal cords or your passion or your love or again your willingness to be on the right side of history and to want to call this fucking shit out every single time and want to find a different path that maybe people haven't thought of before, that we could find some sort of resolution or again talk to the people, or again a different way to listen to the people. But there's so much, like, it's so in depth, this conversation, because you could talk about, it goes into money in politics and how people and politicians basically seemingly are out there, continuously trying to run their campaign as opposed to do the work that they said they were going to do while they were campaigning, type of thing. And I get that's probably a lot of optics, as it were, and not so much the reality of the situation. But again, there's a ton of different topics in conversation. But again, I want to reiterate, I feel like, and again, I have no problem talking about this stuff, because I feel like anybody that's listened to me for long enough knows that I have no qualms about talking about Donald Trump, the Republicans, the neo-Nazis, the white Christian nationalists, the Zionists, as being the absolute fucking problem, as being the enemy, as us being in opposition to. So I just, a lot of the times, maybe I get wrapped up in thinking that people understand that that's where I stand, while also, here, let me see if I can, fix and better some stuff on my own side at the same time, type of thing. You know what I mean? So maybe it gets lost in translation. Again, I'm not as articulate as John Fugel's saying, so I should.
Nobody is. Don't set yourself for it's an impossible standard to live up to. I've tried. Just don't bother. We'll just talk like a country bumpkin and a longshoreman.
We can just pretend to understand each other.
By the way, a vote on the War Powers Resolution in the House that would have forced Trump to remove U.S. forces from Iran failed in the House of Representatives last Thursday by 1 vote. Complete Democratic, support. Complete Republican support. 1 vote, 214 to 213.
Is it based on the vote itself, or is it based on the timeline?
What do you mean?
Like, because I kind of, and I think a lot of people do too. Like, there was they called the War Powers Resolution the same thing that they wanted the senators and the people in Congress to vote on. It is the same thing as this 1973 War Powers Resolution for the president to try to curtail his powers, which, again, in my instance, by the way I read it, only gave him more power to utilize the military. So it doesn't fucking make any sense to me right off the jump. But he's supposed to notify Congress within 48 hours. He gets 30 days, right? or no, excuse me, he gets 60 days, and then he's got to go back to Congress. And if Congress doesn't authorize the continued use of the fucking military force, then the troops come the fuck home. Then Congress has the ability to bring these troops the fuck home, regardless of what the president wants, what the fucking Pentagon says. That's what I read into it. If I'm wrong, correct me, and I'll be more than happy to say where I'm wrong.
It was introduced under Section 5 of the War Powers Resolution, which means from the actual law about that timeline. As a privileged measure, meaning House leaders could not simply bury it in committee. The text ordered the president to remove United States armed forces from hostilities with Iran unless Congress specifically authorized the war, essentially forcing an end to the U.S. participation in the Iran, absent an AUMF, which is what Trump would probably fold this over into anyways, but I agree. In practice, it would have required Trump to wind down air and naval operations, intelligence support, and other direct hostilities within a defined time frame, while still allowing action strictly in self-defense. Final House vote was 213 in favor, 214 against.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is the Congress has to authorize the continued use. Wouldn't that mean that they would need Democratic support in order to do that? The Republicans don't have enough alone to authorize the use of military force.
This is
just
exactly
on
what this is exactly what you were asking for in terms of the war powers thing before the war started. Essentially, they're saying when this date comes up, or before, we can enact it before. If the Congress passes this, they can enact the war powers, pull them back from the president and say, you don't have to wait 60 days. You have to do it now. That's what this vote would do. You got the 60 days, but before that, we can say, fuck this and have a vote. And that's what this was. This is before the 60 days come up. That clock you're saying should be ticking, which it is. This would have brought him to heel and made him start winding it down in 60 days. He could start winding it down then and say defensive measures, and then he could roll the AUMF into it.
But where does it say that original vote is necessary? Because I thought, like I said, it was Congress's vote to authorize the continued use. So what is the first vote to even have it happen? They already have the way that it's written. It already gives Congress the authorization after that certain time frame. Then they go to either authorize or not authorize the continued military use. This would be before
that time frame ends. That would be before this time frame ends. So that you could, if you got 60 days, but if the Congress says you don't have 60 days, we think this is nuts. We took a vote. You've got to come and do this now. They have the power to do that under war powers.
I was thinking that the way it was written, they would have to continuously authorize the military use, and that by that stretch, they would not, on party lines alone, have the ability to do so. They would have to initiate some sort of democratic involvement in order to continuously authorize the military use.
At the 60-day
I didn't know that
mark,
it could just be I didn't know that it could just be thrown away before it even gets to that point by this initial fucking vote before we even get to the point of
it's the other way around.
The power to vote on it.
This vote doesn't throw it away. This vote doesn't say the 60 days vote doesn't go in, the 60-day timeline doesn't go into effect. It says we're bringing that timeline up, meaning that if the rule says he's got 60 days, but Congress can get together before that 60 days is up and say, fuck this, we want an end to it now. That would be the war powers resolution that they're putting there. Start removing troops now, 30 days in, 10 days in. They could do it the same afternoon. And it was done under privilege by a Democrat putting it forward. And so because it's part of we're at war, and Trump said war, and that was what cued it. That's why they didn't want to say war. Right? That's one of the reasons, is because that created the privilege for them to be able to bring it to the floor. So 213 to 214, Massey joined with us. And then there were a bunch of presents and other people who were, voted president or were not present themselves. So it ended up being.
Correct me if I'm wrong. This isn't an explicit vote on the authorization of continued military use by Congress, right? This is a vote to just push up that deadline, is what you're saying.
Yeah, this is the text ordered the president.
Right. So there should be another vote where there should be another congressional vote on whether or not we're going to continue to authorize the
but
continued
not until
military
60
use,
days are up,
or we're not going to do that. Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I mean. I was just trying to figure out if that was negating that, or if that was basically saying, but if they moved the timeline up, but we're still going to wait for 60 days.
Well, they have to. That's what the war is. That's what the war powers right. That gives him 60 days. He's got
So
60
then
days.
what was this vote on then?
This vote was
I don't know.
saying
maybe
Congress
I'm
doesn't have to
misunderstanding
wait.
because it doesn't make
Hold
sense
on
to
one
me.
second. Hold on.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
My headphones died. 1 second. I'm going to jump to another pair. I got a spare. I'm like
And
a
forgive me,
fucking
Chad,
F1.
if you're screaming
I'm
at
like
me
a
in the
fucking
chat.
F1
My
pit
apologies.
crew. Hold on 1 second while this jumps back in, and I think I'll be able to hear you in a second. So no, what this appears to be, forgive me if I'm completely intoxicated, but what this appears to be is that the president has 60 days. At 60 days, he's got to come to Congress and make his case, which gives him another 2 weeks or so while they're making the case to drag this shit on however they want, right? And then, hold on one second. Let me make sure I've got an output on this one that adds this to here just to make sure I can hear what the fuck's going on. The Congress can pull back that power from him. They can't stop the 60 days. They can stop the 60 days limit. They can bring it forward, but he's still got that 60 days unless they have this vote. He's got at least 60 days. The Congress can shorten that time and say, no, get the fuck out now. That's what this vote was. It failed by 1 vote. 1.
Oh, I got what you're saying. So that would have done that, but it didn't pass. That's what you're saying. But that inevitably should bring up, therefore. Oops, sorry.
Hold on. I like because my headphones are fucked up. I can't hear you. So give me 1 second.
No, all good, brother. All
trying
good.
to solve it right now. These are those. Sorry. 3, 2, 1, and I should be able to.
Your headphones didn't know we were going to be on this long. Your headphones didn't expect us to be on this long.
Son of a bitch. Oh, there, I hear you.
We're back. We're back in action.
We're back in action. Excellent.
Sorry about that. Like I was saying, I don't think your headphones expected us to be on this long.
Yes, no, I killed batteries in an entire set of headphones. I'm very proud of myself. So, yeah, this is a crucial part of this, right? That
but so just to reiterate where we were. So that vote failed. That would have pushed brought the timeline up. So he gets the 60 days. And then if I'm not mistaken, there's also some 30-day extension in there that's also written in, that I also believe that I read in the way that it was written. I think that's kind of, if they do in fact initiate, if I'm not mistaken, the withdrawal, then they get kind of the time to plan it and effectuate the process of it. But again, whether or not that's what it actually says in the details there. But so to the best of my knowledge, that there would then have to be some sort of other vote by Congress to either authorize the continued use or not authorize the continued use, right? Yep. And that would not be able to be done on party lines. They would need Democratic representation to vote alongside with the Republicans to authorize the continued military use, correct?
Yeah, and the only option Trump would have at that point is to use the AUMF as an excuse to do it and call the attacks that they did on, say, Dubai and other places as terrorism, which
like
he will.
Self-defense, yeah. Right.
And he will roll it into that, and this will become part of the greater war on terror. By the way, an argument.
So just hypothetically speaking, what's the earliest time frame then that Congress could vote on the continued or not continued use of military action based on that time frame? So if tomorrow's 60 days, you would have to say at the very most would be 30 days after tomorrow, right? Considering that's the longest extension you could have on that.
Yep.
So it would have to be within the next 30 days.
And they could say, we're presenting a thing because we're winding it down. And so we're doing that. So trust us, bro, and to the House and the Senate leadership. And that's what they'll do. And then they'll basically, it'll be, what we ended up with in Israel. Biden comes up with this 20-point plan for, a demilitarized Hamas, but basically Gaza as a 2/3 state solution, depending on whether you think the West Bank leadership is the same as Gaza going forward or whatever. And Trump comes in, claims that same deal as his own, with the exception of, I'll let Netanyahu bomb for 10 more months. That was the difference. And they're not even through phase 1. They're just still doing it. So, and it
pisses me off, the people that try to give Trump credit for ending it. Well, the Democrats continued it and the Republicans, no, they just gave Benjamin Netanyahu tacit permission and everything he's ever wanted in order to be able to make it seem like he's stopping it while conducting it even more aggressively behind the scenes. Because again, he's got the permission from Trump. He doesn't have to do it overwhelmingly and outright like he was beforehand. But people are still losing their lives. People are still being pushed out of territory. Like, it hasn't stopped to the way, in even close to the way that the Republicans or Donald Trump would have suggested.
And to the right, and which is exactly why I don't think it could be dumb or stupid that people didn't know this, because Donald Trump posted pictures of like a Kushner-built hotel with his fucking name on it, with him dancing with fucking hula girls, basically, on the new Gaza Riviera. So the idea that there was going to be a split between these two is insane. I'm going to let you go because we could do this all day, and then we're going to turn into the positive Hassan, and I don't think the internet could take it.
No, I love you, brother. I do appreciate you, and I do enjoy these conversations.
Yeah.
And I enjoy the fact that, not all of these things, like, we don't have to all be in agreement, but we're all pushing for the same goal.
Yep.
And as long as we could at some point get on either the same track or parallel tracks to get to that, then that's kind of where we're trying to go. And, sometimes, hopefully you can learn stuff from me, and a lot of the times I learn stuff from you. And if we can come out of it a little bit more knowledgeable, with a little bit more understanding of how, again, you or I feel, or how we got into these positions, then I think we're doing some good, some justice. And again, if people in the chat have come out of this, hearing something maybe they didn't hear, or learning about some of the processes or whatever, then I think we're doing good. I think we're doing good. So
Agreed.
I appreciate you again. My apologies for the passion.
Never.
But again, it's just you have the same thing. It's just I think it comes out in different ways. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I just want to get it done. I want us to live in a world of reality where we actually make a difference for the people that we care about. And this, I'm not big on the take our ball and go home bullshit that I think gets a lot of people stuck in these situations. It's just not good. So, anyways, I appreciate you, and I will see you again very, very soon. Take care of yourself, my brother.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. Thank you to the Sparklers. Thank you so much for everybody that comes over and joins the show whenever you can. I appreciate you, Hal, and CSL, and Andrea, and everybody that helps
We'll raid
out.
you whenever we can, brother. All right. Cheers.
Thanks, dude.
There he goes. Ladies and gentlemen, the wonderful and talented Boston Brian. A great conversation that, we should never be afraid to have, especially when we're having it amongst people that we respect. And who, the reason honest to God, the reason why I feel like I can could talk about these things as passionately as I do with Brian is because I know his heart's in the right place. I know he wants this to work because he actually gives a shit. I do not believe the same about TYT and Hassan and that crowd at all. There was a period where I was like, they're just fucking stupid, or they're dumb and don't realize the damage they're doing. At a certain point, I was like, nobody's that stupid and runs a multi-million-dollar business. So I'm going to go with they're doing it on purpose. And I know that, like, Brian means well. That kid's soul is in the right place. So that's a key part of this. Why did I disappear from my own little vertical stream? That's weird. Hold on. Come here, you. But in the meantime, I'm going to go because I stayed over and I got to go take care of my girl. So much love to you guys. Take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. And where the fuck did I go? This is me. This is me. That's it. Yeah, my camera's just not on that one. That's weird. Hold on one second. Scene. Let's see. Do I have a nested scene with me or no? Yes, I do. There it is. Dink. Yeah. I don't know where I went. I don't know why that happened. But I am back in the vertical stream, which is good. Anyways, much love to you guys. Appreciate it. I hope there was a lot of soul searching and good conversation that was happening while we were talking too. And like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show, etc., etc. Venmo is a great way to support the show. Super chats, always helpful. Becoming a member on the channel is great, but subscribe, it's free. Help me get over 100,000. Let's start really nipping at the heels of these idiots. Otherwise, they're never going to take this conversation seriously. They aren't, because they don't judge it on the value. It's based on subscription numbers. And unless I get those up, it's just, I'm just going to be yelling into a fucking thunderstorm. So much love, and I will talk to you guys later on. Take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. And let's see, how should we go out? I feel like, where is this one? Yeah. This one goes out to Boston Brian. If you know, you know.
Can see, soften up so you lean on me. Whatever you want is whatever you take. Call it weakness, call it fake. Leave your mark like it fades away. Leave a scar that really made your day. Just smile like it can't cut through, like I don't keep count on you.
My credits aren't working. Boo.
Reap what you sow. You take my calm for hollow ground. Say I'm quiet 'cause I don't get loud. Dig your heels where the fault lines run. Take a gift as a sign you won. Every line you step across, you don't count it as a cost. Every inch you take from me, you disguise your greed as humility.
There we go.
Your kingdom built on a stolen ground.